Welcome back to Kings of the North. It's Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. We're glad you guys are here with us today. That's next offseason. I'll sing a whole show.
You've been wanting a song for us forever. You can just sing the intro every time.
Yeah. We'll talk the intro and we'll sing the show. The whole show is just a song. Bill Landis and Doug Lesmerises, we are here to talk about Big 12 Media Days. They're happening right now in Frisco, Texas. They started on Tuesday. They're finishing up on Wednesday. 4 of our northern teams, their head coaches and players talked on Tuesday. The other 4 are talking on Wednesday. We're monitoring, Landis, right? We're keeping the feelers out. We've got a vague vibe of what's going on down there. Yes.
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of the press conferences yesterday. Fun music in between the press conferences, by the way. Get a little Dua Lipa when you're waiting for Joey McGuire to come to the podium and talk to the people. So it was a nice time.
Like Dua Lipa, very entertaining a performer. Did you see? It looks like the players were in their football uniforms for their interviews instead of in suits. Is that?
Yeah.
I saw Avery Johnson in a jersey.
Yeah, I was watching. BYU has like their TV contingent there. They were doing an interview with Chase Roberts, the receiver, and he was wearing his uniform. And I was like, this is kind of weird. I know. I think at every media day, there are photo shoots that happen with players in their uniforms. Like the television networks, I think, do some of that stuff there. But typically, at least at Big Ten, from my experience, you don't see the guys walking around in their uniforms. They're like in a different room in a different part of the thing. But I guess at Big 12, everyone's just walking around in the uniform. You never know. They are on a football field. A game could break out at any time. So you want to be ready.
That's true. I mean, they were on a football field last year when I was there in Vegas, and they weren't wearing their jerseys. They were wearing lovely suits. So I don't know if there was a Brett Yormark. I appreciate it. Outlaw league. Do we still think of the Big 12 as an outlaw league? I think of the Big 2. I think the Big 12 has an identity, and it feels like to me the ACC is a little bit more Clemson. Whichever team in Florida is interested in having a decent team, and then a more of an odd collection of teams. But I do feel like, am I the Outlaw Conference? The do things different. The Nelly is our halftime show. We're bringing in a WWE person with his wrestling belt conference. They're cultivating that, but I buy it. I think of them that way.
I think of them that way too, but I buy it. I like it. I think you have to find ways to differentiate yourself. When it's all about the SEC and the Big Ten. And I think the Big 12 has done a really, really nice job of that. So, yeah, I don't think the ACC is nearly in the same boat, but very much like the programs in the Big 12 more or less seem fairly like-minded in a way that I think is not true of the ACC either. So, yes, there's a definite vibe to the Big 12.
Yeah, they get after it a little bit more. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about 2 things that Brett Yormark, the commissioner, said on Tuesday that we want to spring off of. One is, he had a stat about how many returning quarterbacks the Big 12 has who threw for at least 2,400 yards last year, which frankly is not that high of a threshold. I did a PFF search of how many quarterbacks in FBS threw for at least 2,400 yards last year. Do you know what the number is?
30 something.
77. So, you just find a stat. You draw a line in the sand and find the stat that suits your conference. But we want to talk about, is the Big 12 maybe the best quarterback conference out there by our evaluation, not Brett Yormark's? And the second is, he said, and I think he maybe said the same thing last year, he thinks they'll have the deepest conference. So we want to talk about, I shaved off the top 4 in every conference, and then I want us to have a conversation about depth. ACC, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, and is there actually maybe something to that? And then our final KOTN Showdown, and then Whatcha. The Showdown is Syracuse, Colorado. I did save this to have a Big 12 team in Big 12 week, and the reason I paired up Colorado and Syracuse, Bill, the reason that we're doing them is because they paired themselves up. That when Deion Sanders said, hey, let's play a spring game against another team, Fran Brown immediately raised his hand and said, we'll get our Syracuse team on the plane tomorrow and get to Boulder. So that's why I did this. Like, ever since then, now it didn't happen because the NCAA did not allow it. But I think of Syracuse and Colorado somewhat linked because Deion thinks differently in a lot of ways. And when he wanted a partner, in thinking differently, Fran Brown was ready to go in the drop of a hat.
Yeah, I think they're similar in that neither head coach is shy about like putting their program out there, right? They want the attention, they want even like scrutiny that maybe comes with that, and perhaps even pounding their chest a little bit in a way that hasn't quite been earned yet, but they try to back it up too. So I actually respect it from both of them. I think they want to go about building their programs a little differently, which we can talk about, but they are linked in some ways for sure.
Yeah, so I like it. So that's what we're going to do, Syracuse, Colorado. We're going to start, though, with this idea. What Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, said on Tuesday was the Big 12 has the most returning 2,400-yard passers of any conference with 9.
Mm-hmm.
He said the other 3 Power 4 conferences have 11 total. I actually came up with 10. So, like, I don't know. But, like, that's pretty good, I guess, right? If the Big 12 has 9 and everybody else has an average of 3 or 4, that's pretty good, I guess, right, Landis? If he's choosing this stat, returning quarterback production.
Yeah, it's good. I think so. It's fun. If he would have said 2,500, he would have lost 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah. Well, and the key here is, and I was curious, like, where he was drawing lines. He said returning production. So he means a quarterback who was on the same team last year as he is this year. So, for instance, he's not counting Devin Dampier,
correct,
who at New Mexico had more than 2,400 passing yards last season and is now at Utah. And then also they would have had 10, and I bet you they had 10 when the person came up with the stat, but then Jake Retzloff left BYU because he would have been 10, and the stat's even better, right? So so you lose a little scooch of juice on the stat. Here were the 9 from the Big 12 who have this 2,400 yards for their team last year. Josh Hoover at TCU, Rocco Becht at Iowa State, Baron Morton at Texas Tech, Sawyer Robertson at Baylor, Noah Fafita at Arizona, Sam Levitt at Arizona State, Brendan Sorsby at Cincinnati, Avery Johnson at Kansas State, and just squeezing in Jalen Daniels at Kansas. So part of this, Landis, goes back to the discussion of how are we defining good quarterback play when we have kind of an interesting line between returning production and hot young stars who haven't done anything yet.
Right.
But returning production, does it make sense for Brett Yormark to pound his chest about this?
Yeah, I think it does. Because you have it in sort of different ways too. Because like Sam Levitt and Sawyer Robertson are both kind of early NFL draft darlings, like the two guys people have circled to like watch out for these guys making big jumps, and maybe they're in the conversation to go early in the NFL draft next year. So you kind of have like that profile of production, but then you also have just like the kind of guys who are fun to watch level of production too. That's like the Avery Johnsons. I would even say that's Jalen Daniels. I think Brendan Sorsby to a certain extent qualifies there too. Devin Dampier would, if you were included in that conversation. So yeah, it's a really one productive, which is important, experience, and I think like fun crop of quarterbacks in the Big 12. So if I were Brett Yormark and I was trying to find ways to like separate my league from the rest of the country and find ways to prop it up a little bit compared to the others, I would absolutely lean on this position.
So it actually is 11 because I realized in my thing I forgot to count one of the guys. So the guys who qualify for this, 2,400 yards for their team last year, and they're back on the same team this year. And the ACC, it's 3. Cade Klubnik at Clemson, Kevin Jennings at SMU, and CJ Bailey at NC State. Now, there are 5 other 2,400-yard passers from last season in the ACC, but they're all transfers. Chandler Morris to Virginia, Carson Beck to Miami, Darian Mensah to Duke, Gio Lopez to North Carolina, and Miller Moss to Louisville. So that's the 3 for the ACC. So 9 Big 12, 3 ACC. The SEC is 3. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, Talon Green at Arkansas, and Lenoris Sellers at South Carolina. If you count transfers in, there's only 2 more 2,400-yard passers from last season in the SEC. John Mateer at Oklahoma, who came from Washington State, and Joey Aguilar, who came from App State by way of UCLA, who is now the starting quarterback at Tennessee. But those 3 in the SEC, Landis, like that's, if he's making a point here, that's not a lot. LSU, Arkansas, and South Carolina are the only 3 SEC teams returning 2,400-yard passers.
Yeah, and this is where you have to be narrow in your scope when you're Brett Yormark, when you're making this argument, because we're not talking about Arch Manning or DJ Legway. who would be the best two quarterbacks in the Big 12 if they were in the Big 12.
Narrow in your scope is a good way to just that's a good advice for your son. I'm sure like your kid's out there like running around, right? Like playing in the yard and you're just shouting, be narrow in your scope, right?
Sure.
That's a little bit like stay in your lane.
That's right.
I'm sure that started off that phrase. People were like, you just need to be narrow in your scope. And it's like, oh, is there a catchier way to say that? Okay. The other one is the Big Ten. 5 returning. You want to play this game? Can you name the 5 returning Big Ten quarterbacks who threw for 2,400 yards for their teams last year?
Drew Aller.
1.
Luke Altmaier.
2.
Aiden Childs.
3. He barely made it.
Barely made it. Dylan Raiola.
4. This is only for the real ball knowers.
Ethan Kaliakmanis.
God. But we got a real ball knower here. 5 for 5 on the Big Ten. If you count guys who did it at other schools, Fernando Mendoza, now at Indiana, did it at Cal. Mikey Keene, now at Michigan, did it at Fresno State. Billy Edwards did it at Maryland last year, and now he's at Wisconsin. And Nico Iamaleava did it at Tennessee, and now he's at UCLA. So it's 5 returning for the Big Ten. So do we care? Is that a thing? Now that we've like, I wanted to check his math. And I actually was sort of doing this to be like, oh, Brett Yormark, don't be saying stuff if it's not true. It's true. Does it matter? Is it a thing to say?
Can it be a thing to say and also not matter? Can it
Yes.
be both? Can it be both? Because I kind of think it's both. It's just like an arbitrary number to pull out of thin air to choose. Like, choose your best statistic to make yourself to look the best. Like, it's a great thing for the Big 12 to have this kind of returning quarterback production. I think anybody who tries to evaluate quarterback plays would tell you, like, probably not the best way to do it. It's just sort of like raw counting numbers. So how many passes did you have to throw to get to 2,400 yards kind of thing, right? So I think it's great for the Big 12. I don't know that it's actually something I would use to say that the Big 12 is the best quarterback conference in college football.
Okay, so now let me build up to another thing that made me mad. So USA Today polled its, I think, 5 people who cover college football, and they came up with a list of the 25 best quarterbacks in college football. And they put that under a headline that said the SEC and the Big Ten dominate like the best quarterback conversation, right? So they put that on their website there.
I have the headline here. It's college football quarterback rankings : our top 25 list is dominated by the SEC and Big Ten.
Okay. The actual count of their top 25 was 7 for the Big Ten, 6 each for the Big 12 and ACC, 5 for the SEC, and then Blake Horvath, the Army quarterback, made it. So do you think saying the SEC dominated that list is fair when it had the fewest number of quarterbacks among the Power 4 conferences? Is that a correct usage of the word dominate?
It is incorrect usage of the word dominate, but probably proper search engine optimization tactics.
But you know what else is good search engine optimization? The SEC sucks, which is what we do, right? It's good. You get SEC. So people, if you're not like, and by the way, none of this matters anymore because it's just all robot thoughts. So the whole internet is robot thoughts and nothing matters. And anyway, the SEC, when you're talking college football, is a good thing to have in the headline. We don't have to kiss their butt unnecessarily. So here's the thing. Here's their list. Their 5 SEC quarterbacks were all in the top 8. And this gets back to a continuing conversation that we've had and will continue to have, is like whether the SEC is getting puffed up with its quarterback conversation. Their top 8, Cade Klubnik, number 1 from Clemson, ACC. Drew Aller, number 2 from the Big Ten at Penn State. Number 3, Arch Manning, SEC. Number 4, Garrett Musmeyer, LSU, SEC. Number 5, Sam Lemet, Big 12, Arizona State. Number 6, John Mateer, Oklahoma, SEC. Number 7, DJ Lagway, Florida, SEC. Number 8, Lenore Sellers, South Carolina, SEC. So, first of all, 5 SEC in the top 8. Second of all, no more SEC. Third of all, the SEC programs that have those quarterbacks are Texas, LSU, Oklahoma, Florida, and South Carolina. No Alabama, no Georgia, no Texas A&M. Like, I'm not even like, does anyone think South Carolina, Oklahoma, and Florida are going to be good? And so if we, you do, you have Florida in the playoff. You also think Duke is going to beat Illinois. There's some things we're going to have to hash it out here. So we're doing the picks, right? We're doing all the picks and everything every week this year.
Yeah.
I just want you to know I'm coming for the dragon statue. And I know last year you were doing like a lot of Ohio State stuff last year while you also would do, you got the dragon statue right there. Yeah. You got the do you always have it that close? Do you have the dragon statue within arm's reach at all times for the show, or do you just have it ready for today?
No, it's always like under my desk because I have to hide it from my kid.
Oh, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
So I can imagine your lovely son running into the office, getting ready to pick up the dragon statue, and you yelling, "Be narrow in your scope," which means don't touch Doug's dragon statue. But you're going to be able to be a little more locked in on the picks this year because you're not doing as many things, right? But the other thing is you better ride with Florida and you better go down with the ship if that's going to happen, because you're riding with Duke. You picking Duke over Illinois in week 2? Just be honest.
At the moment, sure. Yeah. Why not? I have him in the playoff. I have to. Yeah.
Just because Darian Mensa's like number 17 on the USA Today quarterback list. He's number 18, actually. If I were to say to you that I think maybe the Big 12 and the Big 10 right now would be battling to be the best quarterback conference, and the SEC is the worst quarterback conference, what would you say to that?
I don't know that I would say the SEC is the worst. I don't know. I guess I'd have to think about it a little bit, because I think the Big 10's top heavy too. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I would agree with that offhand. I don't think I would.
So the thing is that the Big 10 continues to have this group of, that we've talked about a million times. How many is it? It's Julian Saint at Ohio State, Dante Moore at Oregon, Bryce Underwood at Michigan, Damon Williams at Washington, maybe Jaden Maeve at USC, Drake Lindsley at Washington. Maybe if you want to throw Malik Washington at Drake Lindsay at Minnesota. If you want to throw Malik Washington at Maryland in there. It's very confusing when a player has the last name of a school that he doesn't play at. I would be confused. Yeah. I think Malik Washington should have to change his name to Malik Maryland, right? Wouldn't that be better?
If Washington, University of Washington and Washington State got all the guys whose last name was Washington, they'd be incredible.
Oh, that would be a good strategy. They have guys like that. When you see Julian Saint, Dante Moore, Jaden Maeve, Bryce Underwood, Damon Williams, Drake Lindsay, right? Mm-hmm. Here's who I'm going to throw you from the SEC. So I'm not going to throw you Arch Manning, who hasn't played, because people are already assuming him. He's third on their list. So like he's already counts. And if you like, DJ Lagway played half a season, but he's number 7 on the USA Today list. Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to throw you like the next tier of guys in the SEC who haven't really played. Austin Simmons at Ole Miss, Ty Simpson or Keelan Russell at Alabama, whoever's going to play there. Mm-hmm. Whatever we do with Gunnar Stockton at Georgia, the leap that Joey Aguilar is going to make, I guess, is a transfer at Tennessee. Marcel Reed, who took over at Texas A&M last year. Isn't there more reason to be enthused about some of these Big 10 anticipatory quarterbacks than there are about the SEC anticipatory quarterbacks? And I do think that the main thing I want to ask is this. Ty Simpson at Alabama and Gunnar Stockton at Georgia are both fourth-year guys who were pretty highly rated quarterbacks. They weren't number 1 in the class, but they were both top 50, top 75 players. And they're going into year 4. They're the same class as Cade Klubnik and Drew Aller. And they really haven't played. So I'm not blaming them that they haven't played, because Gunnar Stockton was behind Carson Beck and Ty Simpson was behind Jalen Milroe. But also Jalen Milroe and Carson Beck weren't out there winning the Heisman.
True.
So when you have a fourth-year quarterback like that, Julian Saint's a second-year quarterback. Dante Moore is a third-year quarterback, but he almost is kind of like a second-year quarterback with a redshirt year thrown in between. Bryce Underwood's a true freshman. Are you Are Bama and Georgia set up for greatness in having these fourth-year guys who have barely played or not played, who have been sitting there percolating? Or is it like, man, they're relying on fourth-year guys who haven't been good enough to get on the field yet, and now we're going to be impressed by the Georgia and Alabama quarterbacks?
I don't think those teams are set up for greatness from their quarterback position. No, like I would take all of these, whatever that is, crap of 4 or 5 guys in the Big Ten who haven't really played much yet but are going to start this year. I would take all of them over what's going on at Alabama and Georgia.
Okay.
The SEC, like now that you've run through it, I think actually does get like kind of mid pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I guess the thing about it for the Big Ten is like all these guys that are on this list now for the Big Ten, like Aller at 2,
So
Altmaier
Aller's
at 13.
Yep. Nico Iamaleava
at 16, Raiola at 17, Dante Moore at 19. Like
Fernando Mendoza at 20, and then Julian Stain at 24.
When you think about, like, I would be, if someone made this list mid-season, I would be shocked if like Julian Stain wasn't on it, right? I would be pretty shocked if DeMond Williams wasn't on it because I think he's an electric player. But I also think that the guys who are here from the Big 12, Big 10 are also good quarterbacks, right? So then you're talking about a league that I guess is top half at least pretty good, if not excellent at quarterback for the Big 10. Or at least has the potential to be. And I don't think that is not true of the SEC, I don't think.
And again, just like we've had these conversations, but let's have it again because I'm mad. I'm mad about preseason perception. I'm also mad about polls. We're going to do polls and playoffs on Monday. I'm so mad. Did you see the thing Brandon Marcello reported that like there's a coach who's pushing to do away with the preseason polls?
No.
Like the AP and the coaches poll? I'm so mad. And I swear to God.
Was he at Big 12 Media Days? Because if he wasn't, I want to think about who that could be.
I'm so mad about everything because polls exist for fans. And then during most of the history of college football, they also happened to determine who the best team was, which was a terrible way of doing business. And now we've gotten away. We're away from polls mattering, but now we're going to do away with them. Like it's so incongruous and it's so stupid and it's so blind. But also, people need to know how terrible the current polls are and how much they have changed and how much improvement there needs to be done with the coaches poll and the AP poll. And so we're going to talk about that, I think, on Monday. And I swear to God, Landis, like we'll take it. We'll take over the preseason balloting for every league, and we'll do a national weekly poll, the KOTN weekly poll, and everybody can use it. We'll do it for free, and we'll put it out there for everyone. We'll get 80 voters from around the country who are the most qualified media members to do this, because the idea of doing away with it, because the people who do this can't use free will, so that we're going to have, it's August 30th, season opener. It's very good Ohio State versus also very good Texas next on Fox. Because we can't say it's number 1 versus number 3 because we're incapable of evaluation during the course of a season. Like this is a failure as human beings. Just that's it. We're doing a million other things. That's like, I feel like we're creeping toward the end of the species. If we do away with preseason college football polls, that's it for me. I'm out.
You're out.
We failed as a species.
Yeah, the problem with preseason polls too is that people, I think, kind of take them a little too seriously, right? Or I shouldn't say, that's not the right way to say it. Like, because you were always good about this when you voted. It's like, here's my preseason poll, and then the games were played. So yeah. I'm not beholden to what happened in the preseason poll. The problem is that people become too beholden to them, which I actually think is a bad thing. So we would need to rethink the entire process of doing them, which I think is what you're suggesting. But if we can get to that place, then I think I would hate to lose polls. But it's an inexact science, right? I've done it. You've done it. It's hard, but there's a way to do it well, and there's just not enough people doing that, I don't think.
So here's what we're going to do on Monday. We're going to fix the polls. I swear to God, we're going to fix it. There's a fix. And we'll scream. That's how we got the Heisman changed. And that's why the Heisman is now a postseason award, because we screamed so loud, they finally listened to us. Oh, wait, no, they didn't. We'll keep screaming. Well, we're going to change the polls, and we're going to change, more importantly, the playoff and what everybody should think about it. Mm-hmm. For this, I do think that the SEC maybe is going to be in a very rough spot. And the thing that is just odd to me right now, I do think it is throwing off in a lot of ways. It is throwing off people's perception, because I think what Brett Yormark is saying is there's no doubt that the Big 12 has the best crop of experienced quarterbacks. That's what he's saying with his stats.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the SEC on all the lists like this is getting credit for potential. And we're not saying they don't have potential. We're not saying DJ Lagway and Arch Manning and Lenora Sellers, who frankly are carrying this. And then we can have a Garrett Nussmeier conversation, and whether we want to talk about the fact that Garrett Nussmeier threw like 6 picks and then 3 straight games in the middle of the season when LSU scored 14 points a game against 3 mediocre SEC teams. Does anyone want to talk about that with Garrett Nussmeier? They scored 13 points against Texas A&M. Does anyone want to talk about that? Or do we just want to think that he's going to throw for 5,000 yards and be the number 1 pick? He's Joe Burrow. He's some combination. He's half Joe Burrow, half Jaden Daniels with a little Billy Cannon sprinkled in. Is that what we're doing? I think the SEC is set up because quarterback evaluations, Bill, affect perception of teams. Because we're simple people. And I always said, if I'm trying to evaluate a team in the offseason, I mainly look at 3 things: quarterback, offensive line, and defensive line. And a lot of the other stuff fills in. Mm-hmm. And then there's just like the structural stuff of like your staff and your head coach and that kind of thing. But good quarterback is often a shorthand for good team. And I will go on the record and say, I think the SEC is the 4th in its collection of quarterbacks. And I think that very possibly will be borne out during the season. I'm not betting my life on it that by October or the end of the year, we'll say the SEC, if we're going through, had the worst collection of quarterbacks. But again,
I don't think it's the ACC.
I think Klubnik's good. Who's that guy I love? Ah, God, Carson Beck. I love that guy. Is that the guy I love?
The guy that had to leave the SEC because he maybe wasn't going to play, and then he's going to start for the second best team in the ACC. Yeah,
the guy who a year ago was the best quarterback in the SEC and was going to lead Georgia to a 3rd national title and got in his Lamborghini and stunk. So Haynes King is good. Kevin Jennings is good. Cade Klubnik is good. To bring in Beck and Darian Mensah and Gio Lopez and Chandler Morris and Miller Moss is interesting. They have a lot of interesting transfers. Maybe. Steve Angeli, I'm excited to see. Devin Brown. Yeah. I forgot that Devin Brown was going to be the starting quarterback at Cal. Ohio State transfer.
I forgot about that too.
Yeah. So maybe. So should I shift my opinion to that? I'll state this for the record. On July 9th, my belief is the Big 12 and the Big 10 will battle it out to be the best quarterback conference, and the SEC and ACC will battle it out to be the worst quarterback conference. You want to get on board with that?
Sure, we can do that. Okay. Yeah,
we can ride with that.
Let's do it.
So Brett Yormark is grabbing what he can grab, and I get it, but I do think we acknowledge the intrigue. We acknowledge the intrigue with the Big 10 up and comers who there's not a ton of reason. Is there a ton of reason that you couldn't put Julian Sayin, Dante Moore, and Damon Williams, put like the 3 of them up against Arch Manning, DJ Lagway, and Lenora Sellers and have like a similar conversation?
It's only that like Arch has not played a ton, but he has played and he has started, and like Lagway started half the season. So like that's the thing that makes them tough to compare. So I don't know. I would maybe hesitate to do that until we see the guys from the Big 10 play a little more.
You're going to regret it. You're going to regret not being stronger on the SEC sucks at quarterback. Also, Mike can clip this. So this is the part Bill reluctantly. So we'll just leave this. The SEC can cram it at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
And then we can play that when like Lagway, Manning, and Sellers are the 3 Heisman finalists. We can play that in December. All right. Deepest conference. This is another claim that Brett Yormark made on Tuesday. He thinks that the Big 12 is very potentially the deepest conference in college football. So I did this. Let's take out the top 4 teams in each league. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
By the odds, I took out Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU in the SEC. Take out Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Michigan in the Big Ten. Take out Clemson, Miami, Louisville, SMU in the ACC. Take out Kansas State, Utah, Texas Tech, and Arizona State in the Big 12. And by the way, there's like a tie there. The Big 12 race is getting tighter. Every time you look at the odds, there's another team tied for the best odds. I think there's 6 teams that are either plus 600 or plus 650 right now. It is ridiculous. So, Bill, when you look at like the next group, then let's play a game.
Mm-hmm.
Ready to play a game?
Yep.
This is how we're going to determine it. This is all based on you. Okay. I'm going to say I have the next list by the college football odds of all the teams in order in each conference. I'm going to say them, and you stop me when we hit the end of, I think that team's pretty good.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter what your pretty good threshold is as long as you apply it the same to each conference, right?
Okay.
So think in what does that mean? Does it mean playoff contender, like dark horse playoff contender? Does it mean a winning record? I don't know. It's what Bill Landis wants. Okay, are you ready?
What if I disagree with the odds? Because you're going to say a team that I think stinks before.
I'm not going to say the odds. It's just in order. So you just say yes or no. Yes or no. Yes, they're pretty good by the Landis scale. No, they're not. Okay.
Got it. Okay. Sure.
We'll do SEC first. Texas A&M.
Yes.
Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Florida.
Yes.
Auburn.
No.
Oklahoma.
Not really.
South Carolina.
Not really.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Missouri.
I would say no to the rest of the SEC.
Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses beyond the top 4. All right. Let's move to the ACC. Georgia Tech.
Yes.
Duke.
Yes.
Florida State.
No.
NC State.
No.
Pitt.
No, not really.
North Carolina.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Just checking you. Virginia Tech.
No, and I'm looking like at the rest. I think I'd
Syracuse,
say no. Yeah,
BC, Virginia, Cal, Wake Forest, Stanford.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say no to the rest. Yeah.
All right. Let's do the Big 12. Baylor.
Yes.
TCU.
Maybe like probably a slightly no, I would say.
Iowa State.
Yeah.
Kansas.
No.
BYU.
Yeah, even with the quarterback stuff, I'd still say yeah.
Cincinnati.
No.
Houston.
No.
Colorado, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Arizona, UCF.
No.
All right. Let's do the Big 10. USC. Coached by a deer.
Coached by a deer. I was like a slight lean towards yes. I'm not super confident.
We had 3 baby deer. God, what a missed opportunity this was. What is wrong with me? I do not know how to make content. We had 3 baby deer in our yard the other day, and the mom was out. The mom was out, and we didn't see the mom, but it was like, I guess the mom, when the babies are babies, the babies don't have a scent. It's my wife explaining deer to me. So the mom leaves them so that like the babies aren't like the predators can't smell the mom and come after the babies. So the babies were just like hanging out in our front yard. And then
you got a lot of
mom
animals
came
that
back.
are predators for deer in your neighborhood.
We have rabbits.
You mean like a Volkswagen?
My wife is like out in the street, like shooing cars away because they're baby deer like 2 feet from the street.
Yeah.
So I should have gotten a microphone and gone out and interviewed a baby deer as if that baby deer was Lincoln Riley. Can you imagine the views? Million views. We're here at Big Ten Media Days in my yard with Lincoln Riley. All right, USC. You said yes or no?
I said a slight yes, but I'm not confident.
Iowa.
It's hard to be like binary good, not good. So I would say like yes, because I think Iowa's going to be pretty solid, and I like Mark.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
Illinois, which is again like the odds that have Illinois as the 8th best Big Ten team. I don't know.
Yes.
Indiana.
Yes.
Washington.
I like Damon Williams too much to say no. Yes.
Minnesota.
Yeah, that's probably my cutoff. I would say no to the rest of the Big Ten.
So you say yes or no to Minnesota?
I would say yes to Minnesota, then no to the rest of the Big Ten.
Michigan State, Wisconsin, UCLA, Rutgers, Maryland, Purdue, Northwestern. Okay. So we gave everybody their top 4. By the Landis scale, the SEC got another 4. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The ACC got another 2. The Big 12 got another 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the Big 10 got another 7. So here's the thing that you have to be careful about. I understand what Brett Yormark is saying, and obviously we understand why he's saying it, but you can't. I think there is some benefit to Texas and Oklahoma being gone because it opens up the race. And the fact that there are 6 Big 12 teams that are basically tied for the best odds to win the conference is honestly awesome. Mm-hmm. It is great. It is exciting. It is wonderful. But you can't view the lack of a top tier as proof of depth.
Right.
Right?
Parity is not depth. Yeah.
Parity is not depth. So there is the greatest parity in the Big 12. And that is something, I don't know if it's something to be proud of, but it is something to be excited about because we don't know what's going to happen. But and we've been having this ongoing conversation, and I'm not afraid of ongoing conversations here, Landis. I am certainly not afraid of repeating myself. But this idea, again, the deepest conferences, we're talking about the Big 10 going 11 deep. We're talking about the Big 12 going 7 deep, the SEC going 8 deep, and the ACC going 6 deep. Let's be on the lookout for great Big 10 depth, while also there being a clear top of the Big 10. So I actually think like that group of teams, you know, like the Big 12 and the Big 10 are really similar if you take out Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. And then you do the rest, like that's a really fun competition. But obviously that's a ridiculous thing to say. But I do think both those groups, I'll take them. I'll take that Big 12 group over that SEC group over trying to figure out whether Tennessee with the App State quarterback is going to be awesome or whether Oklahoma with the Washington State quarterback is going to be awesome, right?
Yeah, I think I would. It's hard, like, you know, if you can get persuaded rather easily, I guess, by just looking at like the rankings of roster composition or whatever.
Yeah.
The SEC is going to come out looking favorable there against everybody, probably except for the Big 10 to be closer. But and part of it for me too is just like that team's fun. I want to watch that team, and the Big 12 has a lot of that in their favor, more so I think than the SEC does and the ACC. So, but yeah, no, I think it's not the deepest league. Like I would strongly disagree with Brett Yormark on that, but he can't come out and say like our league's so wide open, we're going to play a lot of fun ball kind of thing. Like he has to say something a little more forceful than that. So I get why he said what he said.
But I do think, is it possible that the 8th best team in the Big 12 is better than the 8th best team in the SEC? I think it's certainly possible.
I think it could be on the table. Yeah.
And
you're
maybe
having like
true.
What's that? Like a BYU South Carolina conversation? Yeah.
And then this is the thing. And why does this matter? Well, it doesn't matter because it's fun to talk about college football in the offseason and we're just talking ball. But it also matters when we get into strength of schedule, when we get into fights over the 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th best teams in the league and how that fits into an expanded playoff and who gets in. And it also affects what they decide the structure of the new playoff is going to be. Because if Brett Yormark, clearly, Bill, Brett Yormark's belief, public or private, he's saying it publicly. I think he has to at least believe it privately a tiny bit to be fighting for the 5+11 playoff structure without the automatic bids. 5+11 is 5 conference champs, and then the other 11 bids in a 16-team playoff are just wild card. They're just, you take the best teams. There's no conference affiliation. And he's saying he wants that because he believes the Big 12 can compete for that. He doesn't want to settle or be boxed in by automatic bids, a 4-4-2-2-1, which is 4 to the SEC automatically, 4 to the Big Ten, 2 to the ACC, 2 to the Big 12, and 1 to the Group of 5. And if you don't believe that your conference has depth, I think you would be more apt to be in favor of the auto bids, right? Because it's like, oh man, we can't. So because it's both, can we have 3 and 4 teams who are competing for the spots, but also is our depth respected enough by the people who analyze the sport that it helps our 2nd and 3rd and 4th teams in their fight, right? So it does matter how good your 9th best team is. Or what actually matters is how good your 8th and 9th and 10th and 7th best teams are perceived to be.
Yes.
So all of this matters. So at least his argument is like fits together. Deep conference, we want 5+11. But unfortunately, he might be wrong about the one, which makes him wrong about the other.
His thinking is not incongruous. I don't think he understands the world he's living in. It's great. It's great that you think that and you're consistent in your messaging. You're just wrong.
Consistently incorrect. Again, once again, bam, know who you are. I might be wrong, but at least I'm wrong all the time in every way. All right, just a little bit more from the Big 12. Scott Frost said some weird stuff that was kind of about Nebraska. UCF coach, Nebraska player, UCF head coach, wins a fake national title, goes to Nebraska, doesn't win anything, and now is back at UCF and was kind of basically like, well, they it's like a hostage situation. They kidnapped me and made me go to Lincoln back home, and then they didn't let me win. I wasn't allowed to win. Well, what did he say? It was odd.
I'm pulling up the quote now.
Odd.
Yeah, this is from Chris Vanini at The Athletic. UCF coach Scott Frost on what he learned from his time at Nebraska. Quote, "Don't take the wrong job." And then he followed up with another quote that was, "I said I wouldn't leave UCF unless it was someplace you could win a national championship. I got tugged in a direction to try to help my alma mater and didn't really want to do it. It wasn't a good move. I'm lucky to get back to a place where I was a lot happier."
4-8, 5-7.
Easier to win.
Yeah, for real. And when you can make up your own national championship.
Yeah.
4-8, 5-7, 3-5, 3-9, fired at 1-2, 16-31 overall, 10-26 in the Big Ten. I now would like someone to ask someone in the Nebraska administration, what did you learn from hiring Scott Frost? And they would say, don't hire the wrong guy. What an odd thing to do. We all know he stunk there. Everybody knows it. And they actually, we were talking about this yesterday, they probably gave him 1.5 years too long. They did not give him a quick hook. I think, and it was lucky for him. You're not going to fire him after 2 years. The 3rd year was the COVID year. And as we said, people got some grace in the COVID year. But otherwise, if 3-5 had been 4-8 in a normal year in 2020, he might have been gone. Mm-hmm. Instead, he's back for 3-9 in 21. And then they bring him back again in 22. And it's just a lost year completely. They probably should have fired him that offseason. But this is some real sour grapes.
It's like, zero. Have like a shred of accountability.
Yeah. Right.
It's embarrassing.
To your alma mater.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely room for it didn't work out. UCF is my family. I'm so happy to be back. I wish Nebraska the best. Like to have sour grapes about it is so odd to me. Avery Johnson saw an interview on the Go Power Cat podcast on the 24/7 network. They do a great job covering K-State. Said it would be a disappointment if they don't win the Big 12. So it's not a guarantee, but they are one of the teams. Like you look at the odds, they're usually at the top. Again, it's like a tie, 4, 5, 6 teams in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. But I like that the quarterback is embracing that they're not, they know what's up. They know what's up. And I watched Chris Kleiman interviews the same. And again, it's like, oh, well, we just did this. It's just reaffirming what we did. But some questions in the secondary. They got to make sure they get offensive line figured out. But Chris Kleiman was saying he thinks their skill, Dylan Edwards, Jace Brown, some of the other people they're bringing back, all the tight ends you mentioned, he thinks their skill personnel, Chris Kleiman, the head coach, is as good as they've ever had. But I don't think Kansas State's shying away from it, which is good. Don't shy away from it.
No, don't. I mean, it creates obviously an added level of pressure when you welcome it that way. It's not the same like ramped up rhetoric of like Ohio State last year and out of your bus, but it's like Kansas State's version of that, I guess. So it's a lot to handle, but we'll see if once they're in it whether they can do it. But yeah, they can't. What are they supposed to say? Like, I don't know. You guys are a little too high on us this year. Like they have to.
Yeah.
Everyone thought they were in a position to do it last year, and they probably should have been, and kind of squandered November away. So they have to own that, and then have to own that they have expectations this year. So I'm glad that Avery Johnson's doing that.
17 pounds of muscle added for Avery Johnson, supposedly, according to Chris Kleiman. Yeah, pretty good.
Part of the 700 pounds of muscle the team added.
That's right. I thought that's like on The Office when they were trying to lose weight and they all got on the scale in the warehouse. Yeah. Is that what they did at Kansas State? They all got on the scale in the warehouse and they're like, we're up 700 pounds and it's all muscle. I thought this was an interesting quote from the Cincinnati athletic director, John Cunningham. Scott Satterfield in year 3 at Cincinnati. Quote, I've used this analogy a couple times, but year 3, they talk about moving day in golf on the 3rd day. Year 3 is our moving year. We've got to advance. We've got to start playing better. We saw signs last year. We've got to take those extra steps and win those close games. That's going to be really important to our year. We had said this already in our hot seat conversation. That's an AD telling the coach to win or it's over.
Yeah, but also on moving day, don't they put like the pin locations in the most advantageous for the golfers to score? Like, is that? I don't know.
That is right.
Yeah. So are there friendly pin locations out there for Cincinnati
I don't know.
Make a move off the board? I'm not entirely sure.
Joe Royer is their friendly pin location. This morning, producer Mike alerted us to the fact that Kyle Whittingham, Utah head coach, basically said if last year would have gone better, it might have been his last year. He said if they would have won the championship, he probably wouldn't have been back. But and I think maybe he said some things like that before. But that idea, Bill, Kyle Whittingham did not like how last year went for Utah. We've been saying buy the dip on Utah, and I think what actually happened is the dip is over. There is no more dip on Utah. They're tied for the best odds. They're in that group at the top of the Big 12. A lot of people are saying the same things that we are saying. The idea of a veteran, established, winning, legendary, great head coach being motivated to come back when maybe he otherwise wouldn't have come back by failure. Do you like Kyle Whittingham? Maybe kind of thinking to himself, man, I could be on the golf course, but we stunk last year, so I had to come back. Like, is that?
I think he'd be in the weight room. I don't think he'd be on the golf course.
That's true.
Yeah.
Is that good? Is he fired up to show last year wasn't what Utah football was about? Or is this a little bit of a weird vibe?
I actually don't think it's a weird vibe. No, I like it.
Okay.
Because we've seen what like fully sort of engaged, fired up Kyle Whittingham gets out of Utah in the past. Like it wasn't there last year. And honestly, it was just quarterback, I think, for the most part. I know they got rid of their offensive coordinator, and I guess like it all sort of goes hand in hand. But like the defense was great. The defense was good enough for Utah to win the Big 12. They just didn't have it on the other side of the ball. So if it's all there, they get the quarterback health. I think they're right back in the mix. Now they were picked to win last year, and obviously they didn't do that. So them being a favorite, I guess, only gets you so far. But with the moves they made in the offseason to address the roster, sort of like the inherent defensive track record that's there, and one of the best college football coaches of the last like 30 years or whatever, highly motivated to make sure that his career ends the right way. Yeah, I'll take that mix.
Okay. Producer Mike filling us in on some happenings this morning. Minnesota, PJ Fleck, contract extension through 2030. I think people know where we stand on PJ Fleck. Has a chance. I mean, if he runs that out, we talked about that during the Northwestern Minnesota breakdown. If he fulfills that contract extension, he'll be closing in on have a chance to be the winningest coach in Minnesota history, beating the guys from the 30s. Rich Rodriguez just said the West Virginia quarterback room is the room he is least worried about from an athleticism and talent standpoint. Says he thinks he can win with anybody in that room. So that's kind of interesting because again, that uncertainty.
It's too late to change it. So,
well, again, it's one of those things. I love to play the what else could they say? Like for him to get up there and be like, "Oh man, we're screwed." Radical honesty with Rich Rodriguez. Oh man, I wish I'd bring like Pat White back right now if I could at his age. But I think there's some chance there. Jalen Henderson, Nico Marchiol, I think they could figure it out. And then Mike Gundy, the Oklahoma State head coach, just said this about Matt Campbell, according to producer Mike, quote, "They ought to take good care of him, keep him there as long as possible. He's been good for our conference." I like it when coaches say nice things about other coaches.
Is that Mike Gundy saying, Oklahoma State, don't think about replacing me with Matt Campbell if I don't win 8 games this year?
I thought maybe it was him saying, "Matt Campbell, can I be your offensive coordinator when I get fired in a year?" He's playing both sides there. That is just Mike Gundy knowing what's up. So we're not doing it today because, again, TMB. The Dennis Dodd hot seat ratings that we've referenced for our hot seat conversation at cbssports.com for the last 5 years, they did them again this year, even though Dennis Dodd retired. They put them out on Tuesday. You guys can go find them on your own. We will talk about them at some point, but they had all their cbssports.com writers put in their ranking based on the Dodd scale, which is like 5, you're really in trouble, 4, you're kind of in trouble, 3, 2, 1. And so I looked through there to find all the 5s and 4s, but now there's decimals because you have 9 guys voting. And there's stuff that I definitely disagree with. So I want us to have like a follow-up hot seat conversation of, I think it's well done by them, but I think there are some misperceptions there that I think we have a better handle on what's going on. But we'll get to that on a later show. For now, we're going to get to our final KOTN showdown of the offseason. It's Colorado and Deion Sanders versus Fran Brown and Syracuse, and it's next on Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis, give us a thumb, give us a review, tell a friend. But just if you're watching or listening to this right now, that is more than enough. And we are greatly appreciative of your presence here and making KOTN what it is. Landis, we're zeroing in. We're getting close on the special project. The folks might be getting a look at the special project sooner than later.
Yeah, it's coming along nicely. Couple weeks, maybe, hopefully.
Before the season.
Almost definitely. Before the season, for sure. Yeah.
We're grinding on it. We've been grinding on it this week, but like in a very fulfilling way. And I think that you and I have enjoyed the process of this. It's a narrative podcast. It's a 5-part narrative podcast that is certainly related to what we talk about on a daily basis here on Kings of the North. But so if you're here now, if you're listening, if you're watching, we think you'll be interested in it, right, Bill? Like if you're already in on KOTN, we think you'll be interested in this. It's not like we're doing something about ultimate Frisbee, although there's nothing wrong with ultimate Frisbee, but maybe people here don't like it.
It's not an ultimate Frisbee podcast. Yeah, it is. It is very much true to the ethos of the show that you're watching.
Yeah. And then it also might, there might be people who are like, I don't know, what is it they do? And then, maybe they'll try this and be like, oh yeah, Northern Ball. All right. Colorado versus Syracuse. This is our last one. Did you think this was a good pairing? And again, I already explained it. Once Fran Brown was like, Deion will come play you, I was like, they're linked forever in my mind. I thought it was so cool. But I also like they both had, as a reminder, they both had incredibly successful seasons last year that were awesome for their fan bases. And I think that would be almost enough. And they both had great quarterbacks who were throwing it around and playing an exciting brand of ball with some great skill position players. So I think there's a lot here, even if Fran Brown hadn't said, well, come play a spring game against you.
No, I think because in some ways I feel like Deion Sanders almost got a year 0 at Colorado, even though those really kind of like don't exist anymore. So but like last year sort of felt like year 1 and they won they ended up with 9 wins. And now, you lose Shador, and it's like, okay, prove to us you can do it without him. And I think it's the same thing with Fran Brown, winning 10 games with, he got Kyle McCord, which is great. Now do it without him, kind of thing. So they're both. I don't think they're sort of out to prove anything. I think they're both good football coaches, but I think that's probably the view on both of them nationally. Is let's see what this looks like now that you sort of aren't playing with your magic quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. Syracuse 5.5 win total. Colorado 6.5 win total. Syracuse 12th in the ACC to win it at 65-1. Colorado 12th in the Big 12 to win it at 33-1. So again, we're just comparing two teams that are perceived to be the 12th best teams in their conference. Although also I think the coaches would prefer we not reference that or look at it or be aware. It's a matchup of, I don't know, kind of good Syracuse and who knows, could be pretty good Colorado next on KOTN, because we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You are doing Syracuse. I am doing Colorado. We are answering the question, who would you rather be in 2025? We're looking at quarterback, skill positions, offensive line, defensive front seven, secondary, coaching, and scheduling and intangibles. And when we did that, you did Syracuse and I did Colorado. And I was sort of saying to you, oh, man, I got to dig it on Colorado. And you're like, man, you got a lot of transfers to do. Sorry about that. I will just say it wasn't that bad. Okay. By the 24/7 tracker of transfers, Colorado has 33 transfers this offseason. That's tied for the 8th most in the country. Last year, they had 43 transfers. That was the most. The year before that, they had 52 transfers. That was the most. So this is Colorado stability, Landis. 33 transfers, that's nothing. I got it.
I only had 16, so it was easy for me. Yeah.
All right, let's do quarterback. I'll start with Colorado. They lost Shedeur Sanders. They brought in Caden Salter from Liberty. It could not be different. More different. Could not be more different. The last 2 years, Shedeur Sanders, rushing yards. Do you know how many rushing yards Shedeur Sanders had the last 2 years combined?
82.
Minus 127.
That's what I meant to say.
Because sacks count against you in your rushing yards, right? So, it's crazy. Caden Salter had 1,676, which is a lot more than negative 127. The last 2 years, Caden Salter was sacked 28 times at Liberty in 2 years. Shedeur Sanders was sacked 94 times at Colorado in 2 years. Caden Salter will scoot. He can move around. You can use him in the called run game. When there's pressure, he will take off. Under pressure last year at Liberty, I think he completed 26% of his passes under pressure, which is not great. So when Caden Salter, again at Liberty, when he got pressured, he either took off or threw an incomplete pass, right? When Shedeur Sanders was under pressure, he either took a sack or made a big-time throw. So it is just a complete 180 in style of quarterback play. But Caden Salter was one of the bigger guys in the portal. They got him right away. They added him in December. They had a plan. They went out and did it. This guy, he had a really good year in 2023 at Liberty. He had an okay year last year. He threw 32 touchdown passes at Liberty in 2023. But Landis, it really is a transition from kind of a more classic pocket passer who's going to rip throws. You go through the accuracy stats and stuff. Shedeur Sanders is just a much better thrower of the football on a consistent basis than Caden Salter is. But Caden Salter is going to get you out of trouble. And Shedeur Sanders got you in trouble. Now, sometimes it was worth it. They had a great year. So we all know the sack stats. We've talked about them for 2 years. But it's such a transition. And then, by the way, Juju Lewis might be the quarterback. I don't know. This is so Deion. I think the Big 12, you take 5 guys to media days. He took both quarterbacks. He took the transfer and the true freshman, and they're talking today. Nobody else in the country would take 2 quarterbacks, would lean into the competition, would lean into the thing that everybody actually wants to ask and talk about.
Yeah.
So every other coach in the country would bring all the offensive linemen and make them answer quarterback competition questions. Deion's bringing the 2 guys. So it's so refreshing. It's so different. I think Caden Salter will be pretty good, but the main thing is it's going to be so different. And so I think it might be 180 degrees that gets them to overall, I don't know, 85% as good of quarterback play. Worse in some ways, better in some ways. I don't know. Are you a Caden Salter fan?
I think he's fine. I don't like that he was worse last year at Liberty. He was, to your point, really good 2 years ago when they got the G5 New Year's 6 bowl bid and lost to Oregon. It'll be very different. I have a prediction.
Yeah.
I predict that Colorado will not have the fewest rushing yards in the country next year, like it did last year.
Congratulations!
Because its quarterback is going to run. I don't think it's going to be Julian Lewis.
That'd be a tall task.
People forget too. He's early enrolled. He's 17 and he weighs like 80 pounds.
Right.
I just think he needs a year. I think he'll play some, but I think he needs a year. Which is great actually that they got Caden Salter and then could give Julian Lewis that year. But yeah, as long as the offensive staff is capable of really reconfiguring the offense in a way that suits Caden Salter's strengths, which are very different than Shedeur Sanders' strengths, then I think it can be fine.
Yeah. I think like find a good, different for sure, find a good overall. And if it gets away from them for some reason, then they'll just go to Juju Lewis and play for the future. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, that's I think that's the option that gets him in. And it's a good job by the staff. They got Juju Lewis is a huge recruit. It's a 5-star quarterback. This is huge for the future of Colorado football, but also the idea of just like throwing him in and being like, well, we don't have anybody else. Credit to them for going to get Caden Salter. So, all right. How about Q's? They got somebody?
They got two somebodies. Kyle McCord is obviously gone. Like radically new room. 4 quarterbacks transferred out, and Kyle McCord got drafted. 2 quarterbacks transferred in. Ricky Collins transferred in the winter from LSU, was named the starter after spring practice, and then they added Steve Angeli from Notre Dame after the spring window. So it is back to being a quarterback competition. I think Fran Brown, like reading about this, will maybe sort of always do this. Like he talked about, like I'm going to treat quarterback different from any other position, and if there's an opportunity for us to upgrade or increase the competition, I'm going to do it. Now he did that here, but he also like he needed bodies in his quarterback room, so it just so happened that he was kind of able to kill 2 birds with one stone there with bringing in Steve Angeli from Notre Dame. He also said I think he was on like ACC radio or something like that, and he was asked about this, and he said no one's safe on this roster, which I thought was like kind of ominous, but also like kind of cool to say. At least,
but it's like it's another reason why we're comparing Fran Brown and Deion Sanders.
Yeah. I don't think I will say, like, I do not think Fran Brown will approach his entire roster that way. Like if you look at what they did this offseason, they could have been far more aggressive in the portal than they were. Like I said, they only added 16 transfers, but they were not going to like sit on their hands at quarterback. So 2 very different quarterbacks with Ricky Collins and Steve Angeli. Collins 2 years at LSU, like didn't play. He played 32 snaps. He's thrown 7 passes. But if you take into account sort of his high school profile, there's a dual threat element there that was not present in Syracuse's offense last year that could be present this year if he's the starter. Steve Angeli is more of like the traditional pocket passer, not a same arm as Kyle McCord, but I think a similar style of player to Kyle McCord. He is significantly more experienced than Ricky Collins, 245 career snaps. He's thrown 80 passes compared to Collins 7, but it's not like Steve Angeli's played a ton. And I actually, when this move was made, in my mind, it was like, get Steve Angeli. He's experienced. He's older. You play him for a year, and then you get to Ricky Collins. Steve Angeli has 2 years of eligibility left. So if he's good, presumably he's the starter at Syracuse for the next 2 years. Which isn't a bad thing. It's just like it would paint the Ricky Collins thing, I think, in a different light. Ricky Collins has 3 years of eligibility left. So, like, it's open. I don't know. Like, Collins is named the starter. You bring in a guy who I'm sure had opportunities to go elsewhere and compete for starting jobs, and he's coming to Syracuse to compete for the starting job in Angeli. If I had to guess, it's going to be him, just based off the experience. I went back and watched that drive he led against Penn State in the Orange Bowl last year. And I do think we remember it somewhat differently. Like it was, he threw a screen. He had a really nice throw on a slant to Jordan Faison. He got sacked and fumbled the ball, and Notre Dame was lucky to recover it. And then like he threw an incomplete pass. He threw a check down and they kicked a field goal. It wasn't like
Northern hero. Let me tell you the tale of Steve Angeli.
It was fine. He did like he did more in the first half on that one drive than Riley Leonard did for the rest of the first half. So that's worth noting. Like I think there's like a gamer element to Angeli. I don't know. He's from Jersey too, which might help. If it comes down to a coin flip, I think Fran Brown will pick the guy from New Jersey because Fran Brown's from New Jersey. So they have 2 options. It's going to be open throughout camp. I'm sure there'll be a lot of back and forth. I'm interested to see, because Fran Brown's just sort of so aggressively named Ricky Collins the starter in the spring, how aggressive he'll be with naming a starter out of camp. If he just like anoints Angeli quickly, or if he lets this play out until the start of the season.
So Angeli at least puts a a floor on things, right? That
Yeah,
it felt like to bring in Ricky Collins and good swing, worthwhile swing.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get past Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier at LSU because like no shame in that. But if that's all it was right now and it didn't work, it's like we brought in this guy from the SEC who was a big time recruit who's never played, and then he gets on the field, it's like, oh, yeah, no, that, and then your season gets away from him and you lose all the momentum. Angeli, I think, is put you in a situation where I don't think it's going to get away from them, where bad quarterback play ruins everything else. I think Angeli would prevent that. And then I don't know if Collins can beat out a guy who came into a playoff game, great. But that's why I thought I get both moves, right? I mean, is this?
Yeah. No, I get both moves. Yeah.
To lose Kyle McCord is a Collins Angeli package, even though it happened in two different servings. Is that a good response to what's next?
I think so. And Syracuse was in it for Caden Salter and didn't get him. I think they were trying to get Fernando Mendoza, and Indiana got him instead. So like Ricky Collins wasn't probably like their A1 option when they were looking at their who they could bring in via the portal. But I don't mind the swing necessarily. I feel somewhat significantly better about the situation now that you like add Angeli to the mix and give yourself a different pathway if Ricky Collins is not ready.
So who are we taking? Do you think if they had gotten Caden Salter would be the no doubt about it starter at Syracuse?
Yes. Okay.
So then we're taking Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's reasonable. And also to have a 5-star waiting in the wings, right? Mm-hmm. At Colorado is kind of a nice thing. Both fine. Both maybe a little low, less certainty maybe than a lot of other of our northern quarterback situations, because we've talked a lot about there's a lot of northern teams that should feel very good about where they are. But we get it. 2 swings for both, and you understand both swings.
Yes.
And there's a home run swing for both. There's a get on base swing, Angeli and Salter, and there's a home run swing with Lewis and Collins. So anymore, man, you just have to, if you can explain your plan.
Yeah.
I respect it.
I think both these coaches could do that rather easily. Yeah. It makes sense.
All right. Yeah. Skill, Colorado, I don't know. They lost everybody. Travis Hunter, LaJohntay Wester, Will Shepard, Jimmy Horn, their leading receivers from last year, all gone. Draylon Miller, 32 catches, 277 last year as a freshman. He's back. Amarian Miller's back. They added Sincere Brown, who's a transfer from Campbell, who was 61 for 1,000 yards last year at Campbell. But he's a 6th-year guy who his first 4 years, he kind of bounced around and didn't do anything. So he's like a lower-level guy who hit one time in year 5. I don't know. They have a lot of guys at receiver, and they're gonna take a bunch of shots. They have added some other guys in the transfer portal. I'm not going to run through all of them. I don't know. They lost a pretty good crop of receivers. It feels like Draylon Miller, people are kind of excited about. He really showed some stuff as a young guy. And then running back is similar. I don't know. Dallin Hayden was the Ohio State transfer a year ago that they were kind of excited about and didn't really do much. And it kind of feels like they had some guys move out again, and that maybe Hayden is still...
Isaiah Augusta left, right? He transferred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if he's like first up at running back, I don't know that that's by plan. It's maybe by, I'm not sure what else they would do. DeKalon Taylor's there. Michael Welch is there. I don't know. They brought in Marshall Faulk as the new running backs coach. There's a lot of I don't know here. Like the Marshall Faulk thing is super cool. Like,
is Charlie Alfredall still there?
He's still there. Yes. Yeah. Charlie Alfredall is still there. So it's like 8 to 10 receivers for the 3 or 4 spots that they'll put on the field. 4 running backs for the running back spot. I don't know. Okay at tight end. I don't know, man. Like it's hard when you've. And last year they did it by committee, but those top 4 receivers were kind of like the 4 guys who were on the field a lot, and they're all gone. So I think it's very iffy. And I'm not sure you know exactly who the sure thing is.
Yeah, I think Draylon Miller's going to be good, and Amarian Miller's I think pretty solid. He got hurt in that game. He had a big game, and he got break his leg or something last year, and then had to miss the rest of the season. I think those 2 guys, your top 2 receivers, aren't bad, but it's not going to be it's not going to be what it was the last 2 years, no
Yeah.
matter how it shakes out. And I remember seeing some stuff maybe in the winter, maybe early spring, that they thought Michael Welch could be a pretty good running back, who's a freshman last year, right? So I don't know. It's going to be a vastly different looking offense, and I don't know how you could feel great about what Colorado has at skill. I think
both these teams lost a lot of skill.
Yeah, but I don't hate where Syracuse is. So I'll start at running back. LaQuint Allen is obviously gone. He's a very good player, highly productive. Took up a lot of the snaps last year, so there's not a ton of returning production. But the plan has always been like, when LaQuint Allen is gone, we're going to get to Yassine Willis, who was a true freshman last year, and now I just think he's ready to kind of be the number one back for Syracuse. It'll be more by committee than it was last year, but Yassine Willis, I think, is number one. He can do some stuff out of the backfield too as a pass catcher. He only had 36 carries for 130 yards last year, but even like going into last year, I think people were pretty excited about him. It's just that he had to kind of wait his turn. So I think he's ready. And then they have Will Nixon, who's the OC, Jeff Nixon's son. He had 19 carries for 76 yards. He can be the backup. There's a couple other young guys there too. I think they'll be fine at running back. They're not going to be as good as they were with LaQuint Allen, but I actually think Yassine Willis has an opportunity to pop and be something pretty impressive this year. Receiver, as you alluded to, lost a lot. Lost Trevor Pena after spring ball, which sucked for them, to Penn State. Lost Jackson Meeks to the NFL as an undrafted free agent. Those were the two receivers who had 100 targets last year. And then Aronde Gatson, the tight end, also had 100 targets last year, and he's gone off to the NFL. So there's a lot of work out there for guys who want to get the ball. Between Pena and Meeks last year, 162 catches for 1,962 yards. So that's what needs to be made up. They have some guys that I think are just interesting. So Darrell Gill Jr. is back. He had 31 catches last year for 570 yards. He was like in and out of the lineup as a starter, but when he started, he was really productive. He started a game against UConn that was actually kind of close. He was targeted 10 times, had 9 catches for 185 yards. And then he had to start in the bowl game against Washington State. He had 4 catches for 145 yards. So in the 3 games he started, he had 338 receiving yards. Not to say he's going to do that every week, but I think he's a guy who's just like sort of naturally ready to step up into the roles that are available. The most interesting one, I think, is Justice Ross Simmons, who transferred from Colorado State last year, had a hamstring issue out of camp, and was never really himself. He only ended up having 9 catches for 202 yards. But 2 years ago,
fired up for that transfer when it happened.
Yeah, 2 years ago at Colorado State, he had 45 catches for 724 yards. Syracuse named 3 MVPs coming out of spring practice. One of them was Trevor Pena, who unfortunately left. Ross Simmons is one of them too. So he's healthy. He had a good spring. I just think there's certainly more than what he gave Syracuse last year with only 9 catches, but there's an opportunity, I think, for him to emerge as the number 1 receiver. Amari Hatcher is also back. He's an older guy. He had 17 catches last year. All 3 of the guys I mentioned have good size. They're all 6'3". Emmanuel Ross was a composite 4-star player in the 2024 recruiting class, top 10 player from New Jersey. He only got on the field for 2 games last year, but he also had a good spring, and I think could be in the mix, sort of be like the 4th guy on the field maybe. And then the total wild card is Jonte Cook, former 5-star prospect, was at Texas for 2 years, didn't do a whole lot there, transferred to Washington this offseason, I think was there for 2 or 3 days and got kicked off the team, and then ended up at Syracuse. If Fran Brown can get him right, there's a lot of talent there, but I don't know that I'm banking on it, but he would sort of be, if you're looking for like a guy with the upside to be as productive as Pena and Meeks were for this offense last year, I guess it would be Cook, but there's nothing that's happened thus far in his career that tells you he's going to get there, other than the fact that he was a really highly regarded prospect. So we'll see what that ends up being. Tight end missing Gadsden, as I mentioned. Dan Villari's back. He's a former quarterback who converted to tight end. He was the number 2 tight end last year. He was like the inline guy, and the Gadsden was like the move around guy. Pretty good blocker. Maybe has more he can provide as a pass catcher. He wasn't highly utilized as a pass catcher last year. There's also a freshman, redshirt freshman from 2024, Jamie Trimble, who was a 4-star prospect, number 307. He's listed as a tight end. He's also listed as 208 pounds. So I don't know that he's going to play on the line of scrimmage, but maybe he's a guy who can do some of the stuff that Gadsden did for you as more of a move tight end. So there's nothing there that's remotely to the level of Pena and Meeks, but I think you can project reasonably with a couple of the guys who are coming back a receiver to feel okay about it. And I think running back is fairly solid.
Feels like Syracuse here.
I would lean Syracuse, slightly. Yeah.
Okay. Offensive line, Colorado's.
Have fun.
They were better last year.
Yeah, it was hard to be worse.
I think they're 2 for 5. So Jordan Seaton, the left tackle, was a true freshman last year. The Big 12 didn't do a preseason media poll, but they did a preseason all-conference team, and he was on the preseason all-conference team. So he's a 5-star. I think he showed you what you want to see. He did give up 30 pressures, which was a lot. He had 15 penalties, according to PFF, which is the second most of any offensive tackle in the Power 4. But there's a lot there, right? And I feel like he has taken like a leadership role. I think in the absence of Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders, I think Jordan Seaton is the voice of Colorado football as a player, other than Deion. Like that's the guy. He's the guy that
he's the most visible, I think. Yeah.
So, and I think like he's done that with his profile as a player, his skill, what he did as a true freshman. But I think he's speaking that way. So that's a lot to put on a guy. And this was a guy who, right, Ohio State wanted him, was Maryland in the mix for him, and all of a sudden he kind of went to Colorado. And I was like, what happened there? But I feel like he's doing right by Colorado, and Colorado's doing right by him. I think this is working. Like he played left tackle as a true freshman.
Yeah.
And for a team that had a great year and tied for first in the Big 12. And now he's back trying to anchor kind of a motley crew of what this is going to be. Left guard, I think, is going to be good, though, because they solved it like a month ago. Xavier Hill, spring transfer from Memphis, was first team all AAC last year. He's played more than 2,000 snaps in college. He started 26 games at Memphis in his career at left tackle, right tackle, and left guard. So he's probably going to be the left guard, it sounds like. But like that's great versatility. Last year, he ended the season as a starting right tackle. If right tackle goes south, I think he can go there. He was like maybe the best offensive lineman in the spring portal in the conversation of that. So that's a great ad by them. So that's 2. So unfortunately, you need 5. So they lost their starting center after the spring portal. Cash Cleveland, who was a walk-on last year and took the job from Hank Zielinskis, and then Zielinskis transferred to Rutgers to play with his brother, right? Mm-hmm. Cleveland, after spring, transferred to Texas Tech. Shahan J. Haraja, our friend, wrote that just the oil money. Like they went. Mm-hmm. Texas Tech came and I don't even know if he's going to start for Texas Tech. They took Colorado's starting center. So I don't know what they're going to do. They have a guy named Zarian McGill, who's a 6th-year guy. The transfer from Louisiana Tech, started 3 games there last year, had been a starter at Louisiana Monroe previously. It's probably him, but they got through spring football, thought they had a starting center, and he left. So that feels like an August problem. Mm-hmm. Right guard, Zion Chrysler. We talked about him in the Illinois-Kansas State breakdown. He was the starting right guard at Illinois, lost the job on the bye week last year in the middle of the year, transferred. Now, this is just how it works in the portal. And it doesn't mean it's wrong, right? You can be a guy who didn't work out at one place, and you can be a great ad at another place. But he left Illinois because he's made 30 career starts at Illinois, but he lost his job and wasn't going to be a starter there anymore. So now he's going to be a starter at Colorado. So at Colorado, you're like, we added a guy who started 30 games in the Big Ten, but who also was no longer good enough to start at Illinois. So like, what is that? I don't know. Is that a great ad for Colorado? You got a Big Ten guy who started 30 games.
I think that's a great ad for Colorado. That a team that has been in the wilderness on offensive line for 3 years, I would qualify that as a good ad. Yeah. Okay.
And then Phillip Houston was a right tackle last year, knee injury late in the year. He did not participate in spring, was around, but is coming back from that injury. The guy who was at right tackle in the spring, Mana Tamani, is a 6th-year guy, transfer for Ole Miss, had been a backup there, but I guess looked good in the spring. So, like, it's a little patchwork, but Seaton's for real, Hill's for real. They've got to figure out center. Chrysler started 30 games in the Big Ten, and they have 2 options at right tackle. Maybe okay. And they went from like giving up 56 sacks to giving up 43, but also they're going to look better because their quarterback's not going to hold the ball as much.
Yeah, that'll help. That'll help. Yeah, they'll allow fewer sacks this year. I think that much is true.
So like TE13 in the comments was saying Colorado's offensive line is going to stink again. like if you're, I understand coming in with that idea, it might be better than that. I think it has a chance to be better than an assumption that it'll be terrible. So if you set the bar low, I think they have a chance to exceed it.
I think if they do, it'd be more because of the quarterback and less because of the offensive line. But yeah. Do
you like Seton?
I like Seton. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's good.
All right.
Syracuse offensive line, I think it's better off, but still not great. So they're replacing a lot. Savion Washington was a left tackle. He was an undrafted free agent. Jacob Bradford was a left guard last year. He ran out of eligibility. Jean-Ray Reed was a starting center last year. He transferred to USC. And then David Wallaball Jr., who was a backup last year and probably going to start this year, transferred to Virginia. So in total, they had 8 offensive linemen transfer out. 5 transferred in, and 4 of them transferred in after spring practice.
Okay.
But I don't know, like, of those 5 who transferred in, I think like 1 is for sure going to make an impact, and the other 4, I'm not entirely sure. So they came out of, like, toward the end of spring ball, it kind of seemed clear that they had a 5. And then they were kind of thrown a curveball because Mark Petrie, who was a guard last year and was going to move to be the starting center this year. It's kind of weird. Like, I guess they discovered that he had a knee injury. Like, he didn't get hurt in spring, but after spring, it was like, your knee might be kind of messed up. And it turns out like he had a torn ACL. So he's getting surgery and he's done at Syracuse. So he said he's going to shut it down and rehab it and try to go to the NFL. So they need a new starting center. I think what's feels certain for Syracuse is Demetrius Weatherspoon, who played left tackle last year, is going to move to right tackle this year and start. He started left tackle last year, going to start at right tackle this year. He was an HBCU All-American at Howard, where he played right tackle and was very good. So, like, I think right tackle is a little more natural for him.
Okay.
So he's going to move back to that spot and start there. I think Joe Cruz, who's been in the program for a couple of years now, has played almost 500 snaps. He's only made a handful of starts, but it seems like they think he's ready to be a full-time guy. He is going to play right guard. Center to replace Petrie is going to be a transfer from Louisville, more likely than not. Austin Collins, who's actually a pretty good interior offensive lineman for Louisville the last 2 years, has played guard and center. Joining the team, not until the summer, but I think he'll be the starting center for Syracuse this year. The left side of the offensive line, I think, is a little less certain. So coming out of the spring was projected that, like, Josh Miller, like a fairly young guy who hasn't played a ton, would be the left guard, and Travion Mack, who's another young guy who's played even less, was going to be the left tackle. I think there's an opportunity that both those guys will still be the starters on the left side coming out of camp, but they'll get some competition. On the interior, they added TJ Ferguson from Florida State, who started 7 games at guard last year. He wasn't very good, but he's at least started. That's an offensive line addition that doesn't really move me. That's just like a guy he was in the SEC and then he was in the ACC and played a little bit and wasn't good. Like, I'm not expecting him to suddenly be good for Syracuse.
Okay.
And then the other transfers they added, Cam Pringle from South Carolina, was a good prospect. Top 200 overall player, was a true freshman last year, played in 1 game. He's got 4 years of eligibility left. I could certainly see him pushing to play as a redshirt freshman this year.
People noticed on that transfer, didn't they? That's kind of a big deal when it happened.
Yeah. That was I think a big addition, not only because he might solve a problem for you this year, but then you also have like 4 years to work with him.
Yeah.
And maybe solidify your offensive line a little bit. They added Zach Rice from UNC, who was the number 13 overall player in the 2022 recruiting class, and then played 44 snaps in 3 years at UNC. If he plays, I think he's probably a guard. Again, not a guy I'm banking on. And there's also Nikhil Bertrand, who's a third-year guy who's from Philly, who went to Texas A&M and then to Alabama and is now at Syracuse. He's played 1 career game, so we're not expecting anything from him either. So left or right tackle, I think is solid. Right guard, they really like. Center, they at least have an experienced transfer. Left guard, left tackle is either young and or transfer. I think the left side could be a potential problem spot for Syracuse.
Let me give you an idea. What if we combine these offensive lines? I think you could get a pretty good 5.
Pretty good one. Yeah. Put Seton a left tackle. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they take the 2 left side guys from Colorado, take the other 3 from Syracuse, and let's roll.
I think you got an offensive line there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's Syracuse.
I would go Syracuse. I don't think it's a great situation, but they're better off than Colorado. Yeah.
This is a good one for Syracuse. Syracuse might not be winning a lot of offensive line battles, but Colorado is one of the teams.
Colorado, they would. Yeah.
And by the way, we see in the chat, Depressed Buckeye is asking if we're going to go back to 5 days a week, and Turkey Bass is like, I don't even know if they did 5 days a week. Yeah, we're going back to 5 days a week when the season starts, probably the week before the season, right? Just for everybody.
That's what we did last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Monday to Thursday. Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This show live at noon. Friday morning gambling show with me and Tyler Shoemaker. The plan is to bring that back, and then a post-game show on Saturday. So that's 5 days a week of KOTN plus a gambling show. That's 6. And especially in week 1, Landis, we have some Friday night games. We have a Sunday night Notre Dame Miami game. We're probably going to be doing multiple post-game shows week 1. Yes.
Yeah, or maybe there's could be watch along opportunities there too. Maybe
watch along. We got to figure out what we're doing for week 0 for Kansas State, Iowa State. Right, that's a watch along opportunity like this. So we're gonna be like this is our offseason stuff. We're dropping the project in a couple weeks here on you, and then like when it's time to go, we're gonna go. TMB. We're giving the offensive line to Syracuse. Defensive front 7. Colorado added Jaheim Otis from Alabama, which was like a big deal. Yep. Like an interior defensive lineman, redshirted after 4 games last year, got caught up in the wash at Bama. And again, that there have been enough of Bear Alexander, enough of these other guys who I don't love I'm going to decide after 4 games that I'm going to redshirt to save the year, especially when you have multiple years. If it's your last year, but if you're saving I want to save 2 years. I don't know. I have to wrap my head around how that works in college football. So I don't love it. But Otis came in under Nick Saban, was there for 2 years, and then 3rd year, right, would have been like his go year, right? That everyone knows. The 3rd year is the go year for everything. It was a new coaching staff, and he has said in interviews since then, he didn't really fit with the new staff. So it makes sense to me that why that didn't work out. I don't think it's just excuse making. So sometimes this stuff we in the North, we can get caught up in it. Hey, there's some guy from Alabama or Georgia who wasn't good enough to play there, and he's going to come solve all the problems for this Northern team. The North has to be smart and take advantage of opportunities with guys like that. But we also, just because you have an Alabama or a Georgia on your resume doesn't mean that you're going to be a star, right? I think you and I try to be cognizant of that. Yes, it's
very much so. Yeah.
Oh my God, Nick Saban once recruited you. But I think Otis. It makes sense to me that he's still of why it hasn't happened yet. So I'm super interested of how this could go. And by the way, another guy in the interior, and Quinn Barnes Jr., came from Alabama last year and is a second-year Colorado guy who was once at Alabama. So Otis was a big get in the portal. He was like one of the big names in the portal, and they got him right away. That could be something, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, change of scenery could help. Yeah. And they were good. I thought Colorado's front 7 last year was actually quite good. So it felt like maybe after one off season going into year 2, they had a better beat on evaluating that position. So that would make me a little more confident in what they've added this 3rd time through. Yeah.
Okay. Amari McNeil also back at defensive tackle. Tafik Thomas also back at defensive tackle. Alibaba 26 is saying the fact that you think we need preseason polls shows that you're out of touch. I do think it's fun for the fans. Isn't it fun for the fans? I'll fight for preseason polls forever, because otherwise we're just going by individual magazines. It's hey, they're number 3 in the Athlon. You don't think you go back in the media guides of every team, it's top 10 wins. We're no longer going to be able to say, hey, how many times did you beat a top 10 team? This coach has this many top 25 wins. We're not going to be able to say it because until mid-October, they didn't play any top 25 teams because there was no top 25. I just think that's a silly thing to throw away in college football, when for the history books, we've always had it. I think it's silly to throw away context because we don't know how to apply it.
That's the problem. We don't know how to apply it. Yeah.
But I don't think giving up is the answer, because I do think the context is valuable. Don't you think the context is a shorthand for good teams? Not the end all be all, but the shorthand. Oh, this is a big matchup. They're perceived to be number 9 and number 12. I think that's valuable. I think that serves a purpose.
I think it's valuable and serves a purpose. I don't know. Poll 100 college football fans. I think most would agree. So
yeah,
you don't have to. You don't have to believe that, but I think it's still true.
I like the chat. I like that. I like when people have opinions in the chat. It's like it gets me fired up sometimes. Tafik Thomas, people are excited about him on the defensive line. He's entering year 4, 300-pound defensive tackle. It's kind of time to go for him. And then they play like 2 outside linebackers with that front 3. Samuel Okunlola and Arden Walker are 2 guys who are back. Arden Walker had a great spring. People are excited. So I think they have like a real chance. Okunlola is a Pitt transfer who came in last year. They lost BJ Green up front. They lost a couple guys up front, but I think that front 3, the 2 edge guys, I think there's real potential there, right? Gabrielle Lightfoot's a 2-year starter at Fresno State who transferred in. Like, they have options. I think they're working some stuff up front. I think it still could be pretty good. And then they just lost one of the guys that they thought was going to play at linebacker. Jalen Wester left after spring practice, which was kind of tough. They lost their top 2 linebackers from last year already in Nakai Hill-Green and Levanta Bentley. But good up ads. Reginald Hughes, 6th-year guy, was first team All-Conference USA at Jacksonville State for Rich Rod. Chose to come to Colorado. Martavius French, Texas San Antonio, led them in tackles last year as a 2-year starter. He had 17 tackles for loss last season, which was tied for 10th in the country at linebacker. So they lost 2 linebackers. They brought in 2 like really good starters from Jacksonville State and UTSA. Pretty good, I think. Like, I think like they're getting after it. Enough of a mix of returning guys and transfer guys. I kind of like it.
Yeah. Solid. Colorado is serious about defensive line now, I think, in a way that they weren't in Deion's first year, which is good. Yeah.
Yep.
I think Syracuse is in an all right spot. They had I'll start a defensive tackle. They had a high profile transfer out there late with Murad Watson going to Texas, but I don't think Murad Watson's a good player. I don't think he for sure was going to be a guy who played 500 snaps at defensive tackle for Syracuse this year. I think there was going to be rotation there no matter what. He would have been a very important part of that. But I still think they left themselves in an okay spot. I think they have 4 guys they can feel reasonably good about at defensive tackle. Rashard Perry is going into his 3rd year. Made a couple of starts last year. I think he will start this year full time. He was actually, for whatever stock you put in the PFF stuff, he was their highest graded interior defensive lineman last year, and he's back to play. They had a transfer coming in last year named Tank Wilson from New Mexico State, who got hurt early and only played 4 games. But in those 4 games, he played 188 snaps, so he played a lot. He's back and healthy, so you have those 2 guys who have been on the roster back. 2 transfers coming in. They stole a starting defensive tackle from Boston College. George Rooks was a 2-year starter there. He's a Syracuse legacy. His dad was a Big East Defensive Player of the Year at Syracuse in 1991. He could start. If he doesn't start, he's very much part of the mix. He was a 2-year starter at BC. I would not say that he was a consistently good 2-year starter at BC, but he's at least experienced. And then another one that was probably the most interesting guy of the group, Chris Thomas Jr. from Marshall, started his career at Florida, did not play much there, went to Marshall, and then it kind of hit for him last year. He had 42 tackles, 16 pressures. He's 6'6", 327 pounds. He's a big old defensive tackle. So I think Thomas Rooks coming in, Perry and Wilson coming back is a pretty good 4-man situation there at defensive tackle for Syracuse. Big shoes to fill at edge with Fadil Diggs going off to the NFL. He was a 7th-round pick. He was the only guy up on the pass rusher who did anything. Last year he had 42 pressures. The next closest defensive lineman at Syracuse had 13. So there's a lot to make up for there. If someone were to pop in a way that it feels anything close to Diggs, I think it would be David Reese, who's a transfer from Cal. He was listed as an outside linebacker at Cal, but if you look at where he actually lined up, he predominantly played on the line of scrimmage. I think he's very much sort of a pass rush specialist, but he's been pretty good the last 2 years. He started his career at Florida and went to Cal. The last 2 years at Cal, 58 pressures, 12.5 sacks. Also, this will be his 8th season of college football.
There we go.
So he's been around forever. So
30-year-olds playing college football.
He can teach the young lads in the Syracuse defensive line room about what it was like to play against the 4 horsemen. Other guys back at defensive end. Dennis Jaquez Jr. Has started 8 career games. He's had 3.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks last year. I think they think that he could increase that. Chase Simmons started 6 games last year. He only had a 1.5 tackles for loss. I think Simmons probably more of a depth guy. Jaquez could start and maybe has a little more to add than what he did last year. And then there's another guy, David Omo Pariola, I think has a chance to be okay. He played a decent amount as a redshirt freshman last year, only ended up with 4 tackles for loss, but like there's some underlying pass rush stuff there with him that I think is interesting. So I don't know. I think tackle's solid. Edge needs David Reese to be a good transfer, I think, to be like a good position for them. Also replacing 2 very important linebackers, Marlo Wax and Justin Barron. Both were very good last year. Both were undrafted free agents in the offseason. Derek McDonald is back. He ended up having to play almost 400 snaps last year because Marlo Wax got hurt early and missed like half the year. So he got good experience. He's back. He'll start. Anwar Sparrow played 141 snaps last year. He could start. I think what's more likely is maybe he's sort of like the third guy and a depth guy, and the other starter is a transfer. Gary Bryant III from South Dakota. He's from Baltimore, but didn't have a ton of interest coming out of high school, so he ended up at South Dakota and was there for 3 years, had an injury 1 year, and like finally had like a full season of starting last year. And he was second team all Missouri Valley playing middle linebacker. He had 104 tackles. So my guess is that he starts at linebacker next to Derek McDonald. And if that's the case, like I think linebacker can be okay. So okay at linebacker, I think okay to potentially good at defensive tackle, and a little iffy on the defensive end position.
Colorado though?
I would probably go Colorado. Yeah.
I think.
They also added Fran Brown Jr. at linebacker from St. Francis.
There we go.
His dad is important to the program.
Go get it. As long as he doesn't make him the offensive coordinator, I'm okay with it. Colorado lost Travis Hunter in the secondary.
And he's a good player.
But I think their secondary is going to be pretty darn good anyway. DJ McKinney is back. He was also first team preseason all Big 12. He's a pro. He actually played more snaps than, well, Hunter's playing offense too, but he played 877 snaps last year. That was tied for the 5th most among any Power 4 corners. 2 of the guys ahead of him were Texas guys. Like, he was on the field the whole year. He's great. Kevin Mathis, the DB's coach, is talking about they want him to go from good to great, which is, again, I'm watching like an interview. Kevin Mathis is talking during spring ball about DJ McKinney, who's first team all Big 12. And he's like, well, he's got a lot to work on. I'm like, yes, he likes that guy, right? That's the secret. When you have great players and the coaches refuse to praise them publicly, it's because they know how good they already are and they're pushing them. DJ McKinney, I think, has a chance to be an All-American. Last year, Travis Hunter was targeted 41 times, according to PFF, gave up receptions 56% of the time. DJ McKinney was targeted 71 times, because guess what happens when you're the outside corner opposite Travis Hunter? They throw at you a lot. He gave up receptions 52% of the time. Oh. So he had a better.
So what you're saying is he's better than Travis Hunter. Okay.
He's better than Travis Hunter. Right. I was leading you down the path, and I'm glad that you ate off the berry bush of saying that DJ McKinney is better than Travis Hunter. He's great. He's 6'2". He's transferred from Oklahoma State last year. He's a pro. He's an excellent corner. And so let's not forget that. Now, they also had a guy who is going to be probably the other starting corner. He was 4th in corner snaps for them last year, and he just transferred to Tennessee after spring ball. So again, Colorado had at least 2 guys who they were probably thought was going to start, who just transferred after spring. So that was Colton Hood. He and his brother left. So that's not great. But they do have DJ Johnson, who's an Arkansas transfer from a couple years ago. He was a safety last year. He's moving back to corner. He's 6'2". They got a lot of long guys, fit the profile there at Colorado. They seem excited about him. And then Preston Hodge is back as the nickel. He might be a pro too. Was a slot corner last year's Liberty transfer. Missed 4 games at the end of the year with injury, but he's really good. So I think they're good at corner, even though 1 guy transferred. I think they're good at corner. Safety, I think they're pretty good. Carter Stoutmeyer started 7 games last year. He's back. And then they got Tafik Byard, who's the younger brother of Kevin Byard, the safety with the Chicago Bears. Really good downhill guy, like a downhill tackler, who's an up transfer. So I think they're going to be good. I do think to lose Travis Hunter is huge. I makes me wonder a little bit. I'm on alert for Hodge and McKinney were so good last year. It helps having Travis Hunter next to you. right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they're not going to throw at Hunter. I know they're going to come at. So, and then you can just put Hunter on an island and maybe you can get help on your side. So you take Hunter out of the aquarium and maybe changes the life for all the fish. But I think they're real guys. I think this secondary is good.
I'm a little worried about the secondary for Syracuse. So, but I also think that if you look at cornerback specifically, this is where you see that I think Fran Brown is not going to be a guy who constantly reloads in the portal. Like I think he wants to develop players because they're going to be young at cornerback. Syracuse is. The room got cleared out a little bit of the guys who played the most last year. Clarence Lewis just ran out of eligibility. Jaden Bellamy is a pretty good player, transferred to UCF. And then Marcellus Barnes Jr. was a very promising young player that we were excited about and Syracuse seemed excited about last year, transferred to SMU. So the top guy back in terms of snaps is Davian Kerr. He played 206 snaps as a true freshman last year. Like he's going to start. He's going to be a true sophomore and he's going to start. There's a guy named Greg Delane who played 100 snaps last year. I think he'll be in the mix too. Ibn McDaniel is a guy who was a true freshman last year. Played a little bit, but I think he's 6'3", he's super long. I think Fran Brown really likes long cornerbacks. I think Ibn McDaniels is a guy who could push to start as a redshirt. I guess he would be a redshirt freshman technically, who has not played a whole lot. But again, they're not afraid to play young guys at the cornerback position. They added one transfer again, so like they lost a bunch. They added one guy, and the guy they added is another fairly young player. It's Chris Peel from Georgia. 4-star recruit in the 2023 class who was recruited to Georgia by Fran Brown, spent 2 seasons there. He played 1 game and he left. And like, I think he could be in the mix to start at Syracuse and play the first significant snaps of his career for Syracuse this year. And then one other guy I want to mention, we mentioned him before a couple months ago, Demetrius Samuel Jr. is the highest rated guy in Syracuse's 2025 recruiting class. Is a 4-star prospect from Florida. They want to play him at receiver and cornerback. So this is their Travis Hunter. They want to showcase
another reason we're doing Syracuse and Colorado.
Yeah, they want to showcase him on both sides of the ball. I think they will. I don't know that means he'll start at cornerback, but I think he'll play some. So again, it's corners. So it's so young. Like there's nothing. I know hardly anything about any of the guys playing because they haven't really done all that much. But Fran Brown's rolling with them. Safety's a little different. Safety's is good. Safety's old. 3 senior starters at safety. 2 of them returning starters, a third guy who played a bunch last year. Deuce Chestnut, Camden, New Jersey guy, just like Fran Brown, was at Syracuse, transferred to LSU, came back to Syracuse. Started 11 games last year when he was at Syracuse the first time around in 2001. He was a freshman All-American. He's a good player. I think he's like the heartbeat of the defense kind of guy. Devin Grant was a first-team All-MAC player at Buffalo, then transferred to Syracuse last year, started 10 games. He's solid. And then the third guy is Barry Buxton, the third, ended up playing 359 snaps last year. Next guy up sort of like at nickel, started 5 games. So, but like I said, they're all seniors. So they couldn't be younger at corner unless they were starting true freshmen at every spot. And they probably couldn't be older at safety because everyone's a senior. So one I feel very good about. And the other I'm excited to see, but I don't know how good it's going to be because they're so young.
So it's Colorado, I think, right?
It's Colorado, yeah.
Colorado in the secondary.
I think Syracuse safety is going to be like it's a very solid position. Deuce Chestnut's like an all ACC caliber player, I think.
Okay. All right, let's get to coaching. Colorado lost Phil Loadholt, the offensive line coach, went to Mississippi State. Vincent Dancy, one of their defensive coaches, also went to Mississippi State. They elevated Gunnar White, who was the assistant offensive line coach with Loadholt last year, has been with Deion, going back to Jackson State. But they also have a couple veteran NFL guys to help out on the offensive line. Andre Giroud, who was a Colorado All-American NFL player, George Hegeman, former NFL player, are there to help Gunnar White, who's just sort of more came up through the coaching ranks. Robert Livingston, defensive coordinator, back. Great.
Really good. Like, I don't think gets enough attention for... That was a pretty shrewd hire by Deion.
Really good hire. Pat Shurmur, offensive coordinator, back. I think good. Like I think they're in good shape. And this is a lot about Deion. I think there's a lot of people, and you can already feel it. And this is partly intangibles, and it's partly about the coaching. You can already feel it that people are eager, I think, to get to the okay, what now, Deion?
Sure.
Part of this, because I think there are people who wondered if he would even stay. Was he doing this to just coach his kids? And his son Shadur and Shiloh are both gone now. He coached them at Jackson State. He coached them at Colorado. If he had been a 2 years and out guy at Colorado and then gone on to the NFL, decided I don't want to do this anymore, I have many other things in my life. He has had some health issues. Deion is supposed to talk at 2:20 Eastern today at Big 12 Media Days, according to producer Mike. It will be his first public comments since Colorado's spring game in April. He reportedly has been, and I think has admitted, he's had some health stuff he's been dealing with. So this is a lot on Deion. And he built a program there. He resurrected a program. But now he's doing it without his kids. And he's doing it. I think it's going to be a little bit out of the spotlight. I'm curious how this goes, and we'll get into that in Intangibles a little bit. But people are kind of always out for Deion. So when his kids were there, they were kind of like out for him. And now his kids are gone, and I think people are out for him. Like, now what? It's like, well, they're working the portal. We know how they do this. And I will say one of the things, this is the 24/7 tracker for the Colorado site that covers covers the Buffaloes for the 24/7 outlet. They do a great job. I think they had them at like 70 scholarship players right now, which is like not a lot.
That's not
so
enough,
like they're like it's like, yeah, it's not even, yeah, is it not a lot? It's literally like not enough, because you can be at 85 and you can be at 105 now, actually, with all the stuff, right? That's not a lot. So that's always going to be part of this, that Deion Sanders is just going to build rosters a different way. But I do feel like people are kind of waiting for him to fail, and this is a very interesting year to see how he can handle this. But I think there's a lot to like. Bringing in Marshall Faulk is super. They got rid of the running backs coach who had been with Deion for a long time, brought in Marshall Faulk. We know Warren Sapp is there. We know he does this NFL pipeline thing. He's got a style to it, and it was successful last year. So let's see. But you can feel the people waiting for, like, okay, show me now.
Yeah, it's interesting what the threshold of success for Colorado, I think, is an interesting discussion this year. And what matters more is like sort of internally. But if Colorado is like 6-6, people are gonna be like, "See, Deion can't coach." It's like, I don't know, 6-6 feels pretty good. Given
I think you could argue
one game 3 years ago. Yeah.
You could argue they were the worst program in the power conferences when he took over.
Yeah. So no, I think you're very
they tied for the regular season Big 12 title last year, and they have a quarterback plan. And they're trying, like, the portal stuff, like at least the stuff in the portal. They don't have a lot of depth, right? And they kind of have, I think they have answers for the starting 22 at almost every spot. You can see what they're trying to do. If something goes wrong, they don't have a lot of second answers. Yeah. So that is on Deion. This is not to excuse Deion, but I'm not sure why anybody would be set up to be like, okay, what now? It's like, that's how college football works. Iowa State lost a lot too. I'm not sure people are like, okay, Matt Campbell, what now? Yeah. And I'm not sure Colorado and Iowa State are in vastly different places right now. They had excellent peak seasons last year that they're going to be hard to replicate. So anyway, I'm on alert for people who are on alert about Deion.
I don't think there's like maybe like a smidgen of this with Fran Brown, but it's not nearly to the same level. One, Fran Brown's not as famous as Deion Sanders. But I think there's a little bit of a prove it thing there with Fran Brown too, coming off of a 10-3 season in his first year. And he's talked a lot about in the spring, like, he's learning on the job, right? He had never been a coordinator before he became a head coach, right? There's a lot for him to learn, but I think he has a clear vision for like how he wants to build a program, like what he values, what he looks for in players. And I think clearly too, like trying as best he can to build it through high school recruiting and not be a consistent 30 to 35 kind of a portal edition every offseason kind of team. So we'll see what that looks like. But if he backs this up with, I would say, just like a winning record, I think he becomes pretty quickly one of like the hotter head coaching candidates. If he's not already, we're gonna have to. There's gonna be very serious conversations of, can Syracuse keep him? Yes, I think we'll be in that spot. Yeah,
you're gonna get down the road. It's gonna be fascinating to, like, sort of like the not tier one school. Can you hold off the Wolves? Because I think the SEC, because he came from Georgia, the SEC will be interested in coming to get him. And then anybody East Coast in the North, sort of a perceived to be higher level program, can Syracuse pony up to say we're making Fran Brown one of the 15 highest paid coaches in college football because he's our guy and we want to keep him?
If Maryland were to open, Fran Brown would be a very natural fit there, right?
And a battle, like a money and commitment battle, a resources battle between Maryland and Syracuse, I would be very curious and interested to watch.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. He's coaching Syracuse this year. And they did, for whatever it's worth, like Jeff Nixon, the offensive coordinator at Syracuse, Fran Brown got him out of the NFL. He had an excellent first season, and then the NFL tried to steal him back. He interviewed for the Houston Texans offensive coordinator job, and Syracuse brought him back and gave him a new multi-year contract. I didn't see the details of it, but they brought him back. They gave him more money and more years on his deal. So they ponied up to keep him. Maybe that means they would be competitive to keep Fran Brown if they found themselves in a similar situation this coming off season. I don't know that it definitely will, but I think Jeff Nixon's in an interesting spot because, I mean, I would just say like Syracuse's offense looked nothing like what I thought it was going to look last year. They threw more passes than anybody and had the 7th lowest rushing rate in the entire country last year with an offensive coordinator who by trade is a running backs coach. So that would not have been my guess. I don't know really what to expect from that offense stylistically this year, but I do think that Fran Brown found himself a good offensive coordinator with Jeff Nixon. One, I think, key assistant loss was they lost receivers coach Ross Douglas to Oregon. Yes. He was the receivers coach and passing game coordinator. We'll see what kind of impact that has. They replaced him, though, with I thought was like an interesting hire. They hired Miles White, who is 35 years old and was on the Green Bay Packers staff last year. He was a receivers coach in Miami, Ohio prior to that, but that's like a guy who's very young and took a shot in the NFL. And I don't know, he was described as like a hotshot young guy, but I think you have to do that whenever you hire a 35-year-old. But we'll see. But that was an interesting hire.
You Elijah Robinson, young guy when we started KOTN, we brought in that hotshot young co-host Bill Landis. That's
right. And then Elijah Robinson is back as defensive coordinator. So Syracuse improved from number 91 to number 49 in the FEI defensive ratings last year, but it was still kind of the worst defense in the ACC. Okay. By yards per play, they were the 2nd worst defense, only ahead of Stanford. And in scoring, they were 14th out of 17 teams. And I thought, well, that could be a byproduct of they throw the ball so much. Maybe the defense was on the field a lot. They actually weren't. Opponents only averaged 61 plays per game against Syracuse last year, which is like kind of normal. So I think Elijah Robinson's a great recruiter. Fran Brown is his side of the ball. They got to be better on defense. They lost the game to Stanford last year because they made some blunders from defensive coaching that they should have won. So I think there's some growing pains.
And Fran Brown owned it afterward.
He did.
But there's one thing to own it, but now you got to learn from it. You can't let it happen again. That was a first-year coach blunder.
Yes, and a kind of like a first-time primary defensive play caller blunder too, I think, with Elijah Robinson. Yeah.
Yep. So I think both these staffs are in pretty good shape. Like we really like Jeff Nixon at Syracuse, right? We really like
a
Robert
similar
Livingston
thing. It's like
Colorado, right?
That's very opposite sides of the ball, but similar vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, like really good. Like maybe not outside of the box, but not the hire you necessarily would have thought of, but like great hires by those head coaches. And they're both kind of in prove-it years. I'm not sure how to differentiate this, but if I were an AD or a president or a fan base, I would take this head coach and this staff for my team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we understand it's not Dan Lanning in Oregon. We understand it's not Ryan Day in Ohio State. We understand they're not paying Jim Knowles $3 million a year to be a defensive coordinator. But for what Syracuse and Colorado are, I would take what I have with this head coach and this staff and be happy with it. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would. And I don't really know which of these two to pick. I almost want to call it a tie.
Yeah, let's call it a tie for now because we'll know. I mean, I think 8 games into the season, we might be like, okay, one guy did a better job of trying to maintain than the other did, but I don't know how we would choose that right now. Schedule and intangibles. I just want to say this is the kind of stuff that I like. I think fans like. Georgia Tech and Colorado are opening the season against each other. They scheduled this game in 2016. It is the two programs that shared the national title in 1990.
Oh.
Georgia Tech was 11-0-1. Colorado was 11-1-1. Colorado won the AP title. Georgia Tech won the coaches poll crown. And when they scheduled this game in 2016, Rick George, the Colorado AD, was quoted as saying, "It will be a terrific high-profile series, and I am sure some fans will use it to settle the bragging rights back to 1990." So it's like, hey, why are Colorado and Georgia Tech playing each other? Because they shared a national title one year, which I think you probably could argue is the strangest national title in college football history. Half Colorado, half Georgia Tech.
It's up there, yeah.
It's up there probably with 84 BYU, right? There's on the list of, you can't even wrap your head around this. So it's awesome. So they're opening, and I think it's a Friday night game in week one. So so I'm excited about that.
Friday night, 8 o'clock ESPN in Boulder.
Okay, so you and I'll be watching that. That'll be fun, and that's like a real thing. That's like Haynes King and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech took Georgia to 9 overtimes last year. Like, Georgia Tech's a real program, so that's an awesome week one. I think Colorado does a good job in the non-conference schedule. The rest of the schedule, the top 7 teams in the Big 12 who all have 10-1 odds or better to win it. Colorado plays 5 of them, so they play 5 of the 7 best ones. They play Kansas State, Utah, Arizona State, TCU, and Iowa State. They don't play Baylor or Texas Tech. Their other non-conference games besides Georgia Tech are Delaware and Wyoming. It's a tough schedule. Like, it really is. There's not a bunch of gimmies in here. And in 23, they started off 3-0. They got blown out by Oregon. They finished 4-8, lost their last 6. They got to 8-2 last year before they lost to Kansas. Like, it was really good. We just have to remember, year 1 was about Deion. Year 2 was kind of about Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders. And now it's back to Deion again. And just what that's going to mean. I think a lot of this is going to happen outside of the spotlight a little bit, unless they lose. And it's like, hey, watch them losing. But they might just be a little bit more of a normal football team this year. And I'm very curious to see how that goes. So I think, but I didn't think I thought they shined in the spotlight last year. Like, they didn't fade. And that program has kind of now been built on, let's go. We want to be in the spotlight. We want to take on the haters. If they're out of the spotlight a little bit, I think most programs you would say that's good. I wonder if that's good for them, because I think there are some guys who came to be part of the show. So if no one's watching the show because they're a normal Big 12 team that's trying to go 7-5, I don't know what that's going to mean. But it's a pretty tough schedule, and I don't know how to view that intangible, Landis. Less attention, good or bad?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like Superman needs power from the sun, right? It's like this. Does Deion need that? Yeah.
So Iowa State, I think Iowa State is a classic team of when there's less attention on Iowa State, it's on. And then sometimes when you put the spotlight on them, it doesn't go as well. But I don't know how it's going to work for Colorado, but I'm intrigued by it. I'm very curious to watch Colorado this year.
So am I. Yeah. Couple of things with Syracuse before I talk about the schedule. Stacking winning seasons is not something that happens a lot at Syracuse. They have not had back-to-back winning seasons since 2012-13. It was the last year of Doug Marrone when they won 8-5, and the first year of Scott Schaefer they won 7-6. Last year for Syracuse was only the 7th time in program history they had a double-digit win season, and the last couple of times it's happened, it has not gone well the next year. They went 10-3 in 2018, and then followed it up with a 2018. Followed it up with a 5-7. Okay. And then went 10-3 in 2001 and followed it up with a 4-8. So it'd be nice if Fran Brown can avoid just falling off a cliff in that same way. Which is to say, I think if he gets, 6-6 in some ways can be considered a successful season for Syracuse, especially when you look at their schedule. Have we talked about Syracuse's schedule and how brutal it is?
All I know is they get Belichick in the Dome, and I'm going.
They do get Belichick in the Dome. That is correct. Another super interesting season opener that we have not talked a lot about. Syracuse opens against Tennessee on Saturday, August 30th in Atlanta. It's like that weird neutral site Atlanta game that always features an SEC team. So you get get your Orange Bowl puns ready, I guess. Tennessee versus Syracuse to open the season.
I hope they go. I hope Syracuse fans go. That stadium is awesome.
It's beautiful.
Great vibes. Go take on the SEC. Cool place. Show them what the North is all about. Last time the North was in Atlanta, it went pretty well. So go show them what's up.
That is true. It did go well. In Syracuse's first 6 games, they play 3 teams that made the playoff last year.
Oh my.
They play Tennessee on a neutral site. They play on the road at Clemson, and they play on the road at SMU. And also in that opening 6-game stretch, they have to play Duke, who I think is going to be pretty good. The gimmies in that first opening stretch of those 6 games is home against UConn, which again was a close game last year, and Colgate, which I hopefully they would at least win that one comfortably. I think Syracuse could start 2-4 before its bye week, which is not exactly where you'd like to be. Here's more about how difficult Syracuse's schedule is. So they play those 3 playoff teams from last year, none of them at home, 2 true road games, 1 on neutral site. They also play at Georgia Tech, at Miami, and at Notre Dame.
Oh my God.
They play 4 of the top 5 teams in FanDuel's ACC conference odds all on the road. Clemson, Miami, SMU, Georgia Tech. Then they play Duke, which is the next team in the ACC odds. Syracuse is 12th in those odds, so there's 5 teams behind them. Of those 5 teams, they play 1, and it's Boston College in the last game of the regular season. There's a reason why the win total is 5.5. This is a really difficult schedule for Syracuse.
Okay. The good thing is, Fran Brown, I don't want to get too far down the road on this, but for the long-term health of Syracuse football, might not be terrible to have a down year 2, because if Fran Brown put together back-to-back awesome years, there'd be an SEC bloodbath for him.
Yeah, so, you want like 6-6 with competitive losses.
Yes,
but no one comes sniffing around your very good head coach.
Scrappy that nobody pays attention to.
Yes.
And then build something something real. And they're doing that. They're doing stuff in recruiting like they're doing that. So I do think the schedule intangibles then is what? Because they both have tough schedules. I was going to lean Syracuse because it's I don't know what Colorado is going to do in the post Hunter and post Shedeur Sanders world. But
I would say because you can look at any Big 12 schedule and say it's tough, but also there's more wiggle room in there for wild card things to happen. I would say I feel slightly more confident that Syracuse's schedule is really going to be tough. Okay. But also I think the intangibles of let's see what you got, Deion, I think weigh a little heavier on Colorado than they do Syracuse. But I would probably take Colorado because I think the schedule for Syracuse is absolutely brutal.
Okay. So we went quarterback Colorado, skill position Syracuse, offensive line Syracuse, defensive front 7 Colorado, secondary Colorado. I think we'll leave coaching at a tie because we've made our thoughts known there. And then schedule Colorado at schedule and intangibles Colorado. I think this is really close. I think Colorado can lean on its defense a little more. And I think Salter is the highest ceiling known commodity. He's been a good starting quarterback in college football. Yeah. Syracuse doesn't have that.
Yes.
So I think as long as they don't wither because the Heisman winner left, I think I'd rather be Colorado. And then also the idea that it might just be impossible for Syracuse to have a winning record with that schedule.
Yes, I would rather be Colorado for all the reasons you said.
Okay.
I do think it's close, but I'd rather be Colorado.
All right. That's our final KOTN showdown. Landis, that's a lot of ball talk. 28 teams, 14 showdowns. What do we think of it?
It was a lot. But I feel far more knowledgeable about the North now.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was fun. It was good.
I'm glad we did it. I am glad we did it ourselves. We could have had beat writers come on and talk about their teams, but I think it was good for us to dive into that. And then we know what we're trying to do here. Kyle Whittingham's at the podium right now. Mike's giving us some good updates from the Utah coach. Said that Devin Dampier is a coach on the field and that their offense is going to be a carbon copy of what New Mexico did last year. So shout out to Kyle Whittingham. It's we hired the OC from New Mexico. We're just doing what he does. None of this you have to integrate yourself into the Utah way. Kyle Whittingham's I'm out. I'm a defensive guy on the edge of retirement. Why did I hire you? Yeah. Do whatever you want to do. Bring your quarterback and do that. Do you like hearing that?
Yeah, it's like it's like if your granddad wasn't a motorcycle guy and then just bought a Harley.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this now. Or
Yeah.
maybe like a Kawasaki Ninja more than a Harley.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Kyle Whittingham's on the Kawasaki Ninja. All right. That's it for football talk. You're allowed to leave if you want, but if you want to know what Bill Landis ate for lunch on Tuesday afternoon, stick around because it's going to be what you're watching, what you're eating, what you're thinking next on KOTN. Oh, Landis, I think we're going to soon be out of the business of 2-hour shows. We're going to get back when the season starts to multiple times a week. And also, we're just not going to be squeezing showdowns into other things that we were going to talk about now that we've wrapped up our final showdown. So we hope people have enjoyed this. We gave up trying to limit ourselves. It just takes about at least an hour to compare two teams like this in 7 different categories. But starting Monday, when we're going to talk about playoffs and polls, and we're going to do some recruiting shows again, we won't also be trying to squeeze in 2 gigantic ball breakdowns.
We won't be. Also, we do things like schedule a 20-minute segment before the showdown that ends up being 50 minutes. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. That feels like a shot. I felt like a shot. Well,
we didn't want to have. We didn't want to come on with a show like have a show just be a showdown. But we absolutely could have done that.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know, but I think talking about Syracuse and Colorado for an entire show is interesting. I don't know if our entire audience would be like, oh, let me dig in. I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Fran and Deion, I need nothing else. We got to give them a little Brett Yormark, right? We got to scream about Garrett Nussmeier for like 30 seconds. Although, of course, when I scream about Garrett Nussmeier, it's not 30 seconds, it's 5 minutes. All right. What are you watching, Bill Landis?
Have you partaken of the Poop Cruise documentary on Netflix?
Oh my God. I've seen it. We've all seen it. It just sits there in your algorithm because I think the algorithm of what do people want to watch, the AI thinks that everyone wants to watch poop disasters. So I'm sure that's in everyone's feed. It's in mine, but I'm not watching it. You gave in?
I watched it. Yeah. It's actually like not a super well done documentary. And I guess it's like a branded documentary series that I guess like wants to be like a little quirky and does like there's one on there's a crazy governor or mayor of Toronto, Rob Ford, was that his name? There's like one about him too. They just like highlight insane things that have happened. So it was fine. I thought they did a nice job of like mixing in people who talked about it like, oh, it was fun and crazy and it was weird. And then there was like an old guy who was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And it ruined my relationship that I was trying to build with my daughter at the time. So that was all good. But I actually, like I was watching it because I remember the story however many years ago it was, like 10 years ago. And like watching the documentary, I was like, this sounds like it sucks, but it doesn't seem that bad. And then it got to the part where they had to tow the boat and then the boat like tipped just slightly. So everything that was in the boat just started sloshing around. And then it got bad. I was like, oh, I get it. But that was only like the last 5 minutes of the documentary.
Oh, really?
I think it truly should have been like the whole documentary. Yeah.
So
it was good. And maybe I'm never going to go on a cruise. So
okay.
that was pretty locked in on never doing a cruise before that. And that sealed it for me. Never happening.
Yeah, I like cruises. So I think I understand the threat of a cruise turning into a poop cruise, but I don't need a reminder of it.
But part of it was negligence. Like that particular ship had multiple fires in the same area where this one had a fire that fried its electrics and caused it all to happen. So like it wasn't. I don't think it's something that's like liable to happen on whatever 5% of cruises that go out. Right? It's just like I think it was Carnival. It was just like they had a bunch of old ships and weren't keeping them up the way they were supposed to when a fire started.
Okay. But like, were there things happening during that documentary where you were just like, oh my God, or did you feel like are you saying it sort of didn't live up to the title? Because Poop Cruise,
it did not. No, it didn't really like. No, I guess like it's not like gross. Like it's not like,
oh, okay.
I sat down to watch it with the expectation that I might be grossed out to the point where I had to turn it off.
Okay.
And it was not that way at all. It was just like people couldn't flush their toilets got filled up, and like if you had to poop, you had to poop in a bucket. Which is like didn't seem all that terrible until the ship tilted. And everything moved from its place. But people had to like sleep. Like people were taking their mattresses out to the boat deck and stuff because like the AC wasn't working and they're in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. So it was like 1 billion degrees inside the ship. So they had to like sleep outside, which I'm sure sucked. And the food, they couldn't cook any food. So they were eating like bread, basically.
Yeah.
And they were out there a while. They were out there for like 7 days.
Yeah. As John says in the chat, your official review of Poop Cruise is not enough poop.
Not enough poop on Poop Cruise. Yeah, I think that's right.
I want more poop on my poop.
They should have called it something else. Yeah, they oversold.
I mean, they never were going to do that. If they called it like the incompetently run cruise, you wouldn't have watched it.
Toilet cruise?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, like for instance, we could call
it was more number ones were the issue than number twos, I think.
We could call this the incompetently run podcast, which is supposed to be 90 minutes and instead is 2 hours and 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. But that's not a catchy name. But if we called this Poop Podcast, now we're talking.
That probably exists already. Poopcast? Yeah.
What happened on the Poopcast today? Doug talked about the Big 12 for 50 minutes when he was supposed to talk about it for 17. Oh, man. That's Poopcast for you.
Yeah.
Poopcast. All right. I watched Perfect Strangers. Did you watch Perfect Strangers at all in your life when you were a young lad?
Is that the one with
Balky? Now, don't be like that. Now, don't be like that. Don't mispronounce Balky Bartakamus's name on purpose.
Sorry.
So, I don't know how this works, but I have an LG television. I don't even know what that means. Is that the brand I have?
Yeah.
LG? That's
Life's
the brand?
Good. Yeah.
So it's like, that's what it's for? Is that like the Life's Good shirt they made TVs? So like in the LG feed, it just has like random shows sometimes. And it was like, hey, Perfect Strangers. Like, what? So it's not like a streaming service I subscribe to, but it was just sitting there. And Perfect Strangers, when I was in middle school in the mid-'80s, was my favorite show. Balky Bartakamus and Cousin Larry, they were on the cover of TV Guide. I cut off the cover of TV Guide and taped it in my locker.
Yes. Love that.
Like every other kid in 7th grade, it was like, hey, you got something taped in your locker? It's like, yeah, it's like Heather
my
Locklear
girlfriend
or whatever. Yeah.
It's like, nope,
I was like,
Bronson Pin show in my locker.
It's like, give me that. And it's every season, every episode. It's just there for free. I was watching it last night. I couldn't believe it. I don't know how this works. I don't know why it's on my TV. I do have to watch like 7 minutes of commercials every 12 minutes of television action. But that era, Landis, of like the 22-minute sitcom, there was an entire episode that I watched last night where all they did was go to the dentist. And when they got to the dentist, they got into the laughing gas. There was no growth. There was no progress in their lives. There wasn't a B plot. There wasn't anything except two jackasses in a dentist chair sucking on nitrous oxide for 22 minutes. And I could not have been happier. So if you never have consumed Perfect Strangers because you're not an old man who was watching mid-'80s ABC Friday
I definitely
night.
watched it when I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. It's magic, man. Now it gets a little weird at the end. They get married and they get real jobs. And it's like, I don't want these guys to be married and have real jobs. I want them to be goofballs sharing an apartment together. But I just like, I don't even know. It just showed up on my TV. I don't know if the AI knows that I love Perfect Strangers, but it was great to reminisce and have also a couple of Balky episodes.
A wonderful time in our history when television shows had incredibly catchy theme songs.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you don't want me to sing that.
No.
Sometimes you just get a feeling like you need some kind of change. No matter what the odds are this time. Now we're gonna get banned on the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, you can't sing too much.
Yeah. Nothing's
Was that a TGIF show? That was TGIF, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it started off like that's how Family Matters came to be because the mom on Family Matters like worked in the building with Balky and Larry, and then she got her own show. Yeah. Anyway, and that they birthed Steve Urkel. No Balky, no Steve Urkel. Eating anything?
What a lineage. Yes, I've had these quite a bit over the last many years, but I don't think I've ever talked about them. And I wonder if you're familiar. Have you ever had the Just Bear brand chicken nuggets? just bare, lately breaded chicken breast chunks.
Is the bear BEAR or BARE?
ARE. It's a green bag.
Okay.
I think they're available at every.
Yeah. You were eating nuggets that were made of bear meat.
Bear nuggets? No, I've never had bear meat actually.
Delicious.
I would try it. People eat bear. This is I think practically identical to Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets.
Really?
Yeah. It's not because I think Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets to me are like just the slightest bit like sweet. There's like a sweetness to the breading that I really like. Because what's better than something being fried and sweet. And these I think these scratch the itch if you're looking for Chick-fil-A nuggets, but you don't want to hop in the car and drive the Chick-fil-A. You can go to Costco and get yourself a big old bag of these just bare, lightly breaded chicken breast chunks, pop them in the air fryer, and they're very good. But I had them for dinner last night, and I pulled a Doug. I got a bag of lettuce, dumped it into a bowl, threw some of these in the air fryer, dumped that in the bowl, little buffalo sauce mixture, and I had myself a lovely meal.
Awesome.
And it was no fuss either. It was great.
Yeah. No, that's I think the light breading, right? I think a lot of this stuff, like there's a tendency to overcompensate with over breading. But I think if you're lightly breading, that means you're standing on your chicken.
Yes.
It's not all elbows and fingernails inside under the breadcrumbs. It's like, oh God, this is nothing but toes and tongues. Make sure there's enough breadcrumbs to cover it up. It's like, no, we stand on our chicken. These
are chicken chunks. So that if you were to open them and examine the cross section, it is clearly one intact piece of chicken. It is not some sort of chicken paste that could be from various parts of the chicken or various chicken molded together into a nugget.
Yeah, because there are nuggets that you eat that you almost have to eat them in one bite because you do not want to bite into that and see what's in there.
Correct. Yes.
But you're not afraid to do that.
No, these are great. Yeah.
Just gotta look at your nuggets. The doctor will tell you that. Hey guys, every now and then, look at your nuggets. So since I'm eating them during the show, I'll make my Whatcha Eatin' cough drops. Is it still a thing? I wonder. Was it in your generation? Like you can't eat candy in school? Like in third grade, you can't eat candy.
Yeah.
But you're like, God, I hope I get a cough. Sucking on a Ludens during like third grade history in February. It's the ultimate, just the sky is gray. There's snow on the ground. Your teacher is droning on about Andrew Jackson. And then like you get a little tickle in your throat. Oh, I got a little tickle in my throat. And then in your desk is allowable candy because it's got 5% of medicine in it. And I'm eating cough drops now because I'm sick and I'm talking for 2.5 hours on a show. Every time, and you have to eat cherry cough drops. Every time I eat a cough drop, it conjures up they're illicit to me. It's like medicine porn. It's like this is teacher, no, am I allowed to eat this? But then if you get caught, it's like, no, I'm allowed to have this. Like it's unbelievable. And I think I hope people still feel that. It's quite a market that cough drops have cornered. That now I'm an adult and I can eat whatever I want. But I can't. If I was sitting here eating candy during a show, you'd be like, what are you doing? Be a professional. And I'm like, no, it's a cough drop. I have to eat it.
It's fine. It's medicinal.
It's still the same.
What brand are you working with?
I'm doing the Walgreens off brand right there.
Okay. Because I used to do this. Yeah, I would do it all the time. Even when I didn't have a cough, I was like, I'm in the mood for a Ludens cherry. Let me get one of those.
Yeah.
But as an adult, I have actually grown an affinity for like the herbal cough drop. Like I love the Ricola brand, or it's like the original Ricola herb cough drops.
But you know,
one, because they're actually effective. They work.
I don't care about effective. I care about cherry.
Good. Yeah, I think they taste good.
The Ricola cough drop is the farmer's market cough drop, Landis. No wonder you like
fair.
That. That's like, yeah.
I'm a little bougie. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a bougie. What are you thinking about?
I had something. I forgot to write it down, and I can't remember it. So I don't have anything I'm thinking about.
So I was thinking about this. So I did write it down in my little app.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked it up briefly before we started the show. Are traffic rules in parking lots real traffic rules? If you were in a parking lot that has a little stop sign and you went right through that stop sign and ignored it, could a cop pull you over? Or is a parking lot traffic sign, and it's mostly a stop sign, is it just a please? Is it a suggestion? And from what I can tell, after a brief Google search, it seems like parking lots are private property and therefore are not really under the rules, the same rules of the road. Now, if you're driving 100 miles an hour, if you're drunk driving, if you're doing things like that, like you can't do that anywhere. But it feels like you could not get a ticket for running a stop sign in a parking lot, which then I would say makes it a wonderful social experiment because it really is a suggestion. There's not actual rules. We're just trying to get along and be safe with each other. And that it's a wonderful little utopia that the parking lot, right? It's like it's like a commune. Yeah. There's no actual rules here. We can all do what we want. But wouldn't it be better if you didn't run over this person as they were coming here with their grocery cart? So we're going to put a stop sign here. Because do you obey stop signs in parking lots to the same degree you do on the road or no?
No, I probably slide through them a little more if I do a peek and realize there's nobody there. Yeah. I do that with regular stop signs too. They call it the slide.
But I definitely do that in parking lots. And I was doing it the other day and I was like, oh, wait, am I going to get pinched for sliding through a parking lot stop sign? But I think I like things where you create situations where we're all supposed to take care of each other. And there's not the same kind of penalties. It's not look out for your fellow man or else. It's look out for your fellow man because it's better if we all look out for each other. Mm-hmm. So you could have a parking lot where there's nothing. There's no lines, there's no stop signs, there's no crosswalks, there's no anything. It's just a free-for-all. But we have a little bit of structure, and then it's just like, hey, if you want to slide through a stop sign, nobody's stopping you. But also, right, let's look out for each other out there. That's right. So next time you're in a grocery store parking lot, think of it as the ultimate societal experiment and look out for your fellow man.
It's a lovely message.
Maybe drop a Philly slide in there if you want. All right. Sorry, the shows are so long. We're going to get back to an hour and a half starting on Monday. I swear, sometimes you just got to talk about Brett Yormark for 50 minutes. Thanks, as always, to our great producer, Mike Yorstowski, for making us look good and sound good. The project is coming. Big Ten Media Days are coming. The season is coming. Farmageddon in Ireland is coming. Ohio State, Texas is coming. Michigan, Oklahoma is coming. Tennessee, Syracuse is coming. Like, it's all happening, people. And we're so excited that you guys are here with us. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was Kings of the North.